Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depends on where you are. Um, Thank you for joining me today. And so today we have a special guest, as you can see. On my left or to my right here is Steve from Serious Keto.
Hello. I'm glad to be here.
So thank you for joining us, and thank you, Steve, for joining me as well.
Pleasure.
So it's been a while, Steve. And so the last time we spoke, I was on your channel. We did a podcast together. And that was nearly 2 years
Has it
ago,
been that long?
I think. I know. I was checking the time. I think it was nearly 2 years. I think at that time, we were still at the end phase of the whole
Mm.
pandemic situation. But today is a very different world. People people can walk around freely without a facial mask. So, how have you been, Steve?
I've been well. Life never gets tired of throwing stuff at you. And that's certainly been the case. I, I, I say very often, you do the best you can with the hand that's been dealt you, and just try and enjoy every minute of it. Those things that don't always work out oftentimes wind up being a great story later on once you're past it. So,
When you can look back and laugh at
yes.
it.
So there's been a lot of after the fact great stories. Probably the biggest thing that's going on right now is grandson number 2 is imminent. So that will be could be 4 weeks, could be 5 weeks, but somewhere in that vicinity. So I need to start prepping the nursery here at our house. And
And do you all live together?
no, we did initially. Um, because my son, and at the time she wasn't my daughter-in-law yet, but they they started early, and as a result, kind of while they were finishing college and such like, they both lived here along with my grandson, and Courtney was here at the time, my daughter. So it was very much not empty nest, and now it is, fortunately. But we still get my grandson Colton and whoever. They haven't told me the name of the next one yet, but I'm sure we'll have them at least once a week. So
Wow.
that's going back into diaper changing once again.
That's very courageous. So I don't have kids, so that's kind of totally alien to me. But yeah, but the stress probably plays well. It's kind of a stress, even though it's a happy stress, and it plays a part in the balance of our lives, and it connects to what we eat. So the question I'm really interested in asking you is, well, actually, before that, very recently, just the last few days, I saw one of your videos popping up, and you actually went on a pretty long fast. Is that correct?
Yes. It was like 6 days or something like that. 156 hours. So yeah, I like doing the periodic extended fast, but I can't do it when any family is around. My wife is I don't know what the term is, a grazer. I mean, she's always eating, snacking. I mean, that's the way her metabolism has been her entire life, and I can handle going a long time without food, but not when someone is sitting on the couch next to me eating Oreos or Cheetos or something like that. So I need to time it on times like when my wife is going to go on a trip with her family. So I had that opportunity recently.
And is she on keto?
Oh no, I, I think she refers to it as keto plus. Keto plus Pepsi
Plus,
and cookies and any other junk food.
oh
She
wow!
will
So
eat
you came out.
she'll eat the keto meals that I prepare, and I'm like, hey, this is keto, and she's like, oh great,
They're
I'll have
delicious.
this, but I'm also going to have this other stuff that's not keto in addition to it as a side dish.
Yeah, because I have so many questions about how you manage that. Because my viewers ask me that all the time, but I'm lucky in a way. My life is very simple. I have my own space. I cook my own food and I can choose what to eat. And, I don't have a lot of experience like juggling someone that's not eating out. Eating out is easy. Then someone else orders something else. But cooking at home, particularly with a big family, that's got to be tricky, right?
It is, and especially when it's something that I kind of can't eat, or I have to make two different versions. So one of my first jobs was working at an authentic pizza parlor, and I've made tens of thousands of pizzas. And in my non-keto days, I'd gotten pretty good at making Neapolitan pizzas, Neapolitan crusts, and the family loves it. So when we have a pizza night and the kids come over and I'm making pizza, that's a struggle because I know what I'm making for them tastes way better than whatever keto crust I'm making for myself. So that's a challenge. Usually I will allow myself a slice, but
Yes.
um, to me the bigger challenge is even now that it's just my wife Terry and me. Fully 80% of our pantry is non-keto stuff. And that gets to be a little bit frustrating, especially when she starts infringing on my limited space. Like, I've got this tiny little space here, and now you're putting cereal boxes on it. Can't you just stay in your own space? So that's a challenge as well.
But you've been on keto for quite a long time, so you must have managed to manage it
I
somehow.
I have, and it's just the big part of managing it is just keeping my mouth shut and not complaining.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's tricky because I've been a vegan for a long time and vegetarian before that as well. So I kind of know what it's like to eat different food from my partner or family members or friends or whatever. But keto is not basically adding another layer of selection of the food. So I'm kind of used to it and I manage it. But then I don't live 24 hours, 7 days a week with somebody. So it's probably a different level of adjustment you need to make as well. So with the fasting, what do you do it from time to time? Do you normally do that length of time? Because what was it, about a
Yes,
week?
that's what I've worked up to, and it's an interesting experience in that you go from if I were to go back even further, like pre keto, just sort of being almost a slave to food, to then keto, where you're a little bit you learn to develop a certain degree of discipline, to then fasting, which then almost becomes like a superpower. Like food has no sway over me. It and I find it about 48 hours. Typically, this fast was a little different, but typically after about 48 hours, I cease to have any interest in food, and you find yourself with a lot of extra time because you're not eating, you're not prepping food, you're not washing dishes. It's potentially a couple hours a day, especially if you're used to prepping food for other people as well. So I find myself being just tremendously productive, and I don't. For some people, it becomes a very spiritual exercise as well. I don't know that it necessarily becomes any more spiritual for me. I already meditate and go out on long walks and things like that. So I don't think there's a difference specifically there. But yeah, it's a way to kind of give my body a break and then replenish it, and hopefully once everything balances out after a week or two, you find yourself with about the same amount of lean mass, but maybe a few pounds less in terms of body fat.
And what was the first thing you ate when you came out of fasting?
Some chicken bone broth. That's how
Oh wow,
I
that's
always start with broth. That's I think the easiest thing on my system. And then even though it's kind of carby, I wanted to give my gut microbiome a little treat, so I had some kefir and some kombucha as well. But then
It
I
can
kind of
be
ease into
kombucha.
eggs is sort of the next thing, and then I find a lean protein. And after the first day, then I'm pretty much safe to go back to whatever I want to eat.
And because I've talked about this before, my experience with kind of prolonged fasting is pretty limited because for some reason, and I totally agree with you. Once you're on keto, you're fat adopted, food is not really a temptation, and fasting becomes so much easier. But still, I find it really hard to do it more than 24 hours, and it was probably just my body. I started to get kind of cold, but I'm doing really well with short term intermittent fasting kind of effortlessly. I don't really impose any hours, but somehow I day to day basis I probably fast about 16 to sometimes 20
Mm.
hours, and it's just no effort. But the only occasion I ever been on a sort of longer fast, it was before keto. I was on, you're gonna laugh, okay, but I was on a juice fast.
I've
So,
done that.
and have
Yeah.
you? And I was on a 10-day juice fasting. And I did that for a couple of times and it got harder and harder because in London, I don't know about America, but in London, we've got companies that basically supply juice. So I didn't even have to juice myself. At that time, I was working as a quite high pressure environment in the sort of corporate world. And I thought, well, just pay someone to juice for me. And I did that for 10 days. I was freezing cold every day. I was fantasizing about having some sort of hot broth. And to be honest, it's kind of debatable whether that was true fasting, whatever that
Mm.
means, because it was green juice. You could choose the juice you want. But if you just have vegetable juice, it's not very palatable. And so they basically added quite a lot of sugary fruits like apples or pineapples. So I was taking in quite a lot of sugar, even though overall the calories were counts were lower, and I was doing okay. I wasn't starving as such, but I was freezing cold by then. So that was kind of my brush with sort of fasting longer than 24 hours. I think for my body, my body's not happy doing that long.
Well, I
So
had done my juice fast. I don't know how long I went. I might have done 2 weeks, but it was inspired by the documentary "Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead." I don't know if you've seen that.
no, I
Okay, well
haven't.
that was my inspiration, and so did it for like 2 weeks, and I got done, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, your skin looks just great. You're glowing." I'm like, "Yeah," and I am miserable. I am hungry and just not digging this at all. So that was sort of
So you weren't on keto at that
no, no,
time,
no,
I
no, no.
presume.
This was at least 10 years before keto, and so yeah, there I had my own juicer and just stuffing that thing full of spinach and all manner of green things, and then a couple of apples, some carrots, some ginger to make it not taste awful. But I think because what you're doing, you've basically you're not getting any fiber. All you're doing is you're mainlining sugar pretty much on a juice fast, and as a result, I'm sure. I mean, I wasn't monitoring glucose at the time, but it would have been probably just crazy watching the seesaw pattern, throughout the day of glucose spikes, and then crashing and needing to get some more juice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt that even though I wasn't hungry, but I could sense the sort of, you know, kind of sugar level spike because I felt really good when I have some juice. But then I started to feel slightly empty up after that, and I didn't realize how much sugar I was taking in, and not much else. A little bit of fiber maybe. So yeah, and how frequent do you do the fasting? If
Well,
you, it's just random
it's
period.
I think the last long one I did was probably 2 years ago because that was the last time I had the house to myself. But like you, I largely intermittent fast. Some people might argue that I don't because I put cream or collagen in my coffee in the morning, but I don't put any sort of solid food into myself until probably late afternoon. And then,
Yeah.
for dinner, a lot of people ask why I don't make sweets. Well, how come you don't have many sweet type recipes? Because I'm going to eat dinner and then I'm satisfied and I don't need dessert. I quit eating when I'm satisfied. And I don't get the notion of a separate meal that comes after your meal.
That is such a good point because whenever I talk about keto dessert or snacks, essentially you're still being nourished. You're still fully on keto. So the notion of dessert, we tend to think is kind of not necessarily junk food, but we think about it as something we shouldn't be eating. We're being a bit naughty, but being on keto, that notion is kind of doesn't exist because even when you're eating something, on my channel, I have a lot of desserts and snacks, but they're nutritious and they're fully keto and they're delicious to eat, but you're not doing something that's bad for your body. So yeah, it's kind of a different category in terms of our experience, but overall, it's still very much part of, what we're eating. So I kind of get that too. So let me just quickly look at the comments. There are quite a few coming in. So bear with me
Okay.
because I'm kind of talking at the same time. Okay, so here it goes. Barbara, intermittent fast and reverse type 2 diabetics with the help of you guys. Hey, plural. So it's not just you, Steve. It's me as well. I just want
We're
to make
all
sure.
one big keto community here, in my opinion.
I know, and there are so many great channels popping up as well. So I think it's so much more popular in America, and over here, if you say the term keto, a lot of people still go, hmm. If you say low carb, yeah, people kind of understand, low carbohydrate. But keto, I think, is a slightly different thing because we emphasize a lot more on fat intake as well, a good fat intake.
Well, and I think there's still a lot of misconceptions about keto and about fat. But people think we're just wrapping strips of bacon around sticks of butter and eating that. It's while it may be a higher percentage of your macronutrients, I suspect that my overall probably grams of fat in absolute terms probably didn't change a whole lot from standard American diet to keto. It's just you change the ratios of what you're consuming, and I think because you're not consuming the carbs, your body is it's becoming fat adapted and it's more easily satisfied. But yeah, I think there's still a little bit of a heart disease, you're eating too much fat reputation. Yep.
Cholesterol, whatever. Yeah, a lot of kind of misconception that's kind of just being spread around, and people don't always have the knowledge. I mean, including myself. And we kind of just trust the expert tell us. I just want to show this. Becky, this is my first super chat on the channel. A round of applause for Becky. Thank you so much. I mean, Becky's a long time supporter of the channel. She always leave really lovely, kind
Yep.
comments,
Whenever she goes
and that
missing
really
for a
keeps me
while, it makes me
going.
sad. I'm like, where did Becky go?
I know there's so many of them. They're like
Yeah,
friends. They comment on every video
when
that you
you get
produce.
to recognize certain people's profile picture, and it's like you're going through, you get 500 comments a day and you're like, oh hey, look. So yeah, it is,
I
it's
know,
sort of like seeing a friend at the store or something, that you're just like, oh awesome, it's great to see you
absolutely.
again.
Absolutely. And recently, I don't know whether you noticed, sorry, it's like a YouTuber thing, because on our studio panel for the comments, they hide the name, like a human name, like Becky
Hmm.
Nelson, for instance. Now it just appear with the ID. So I kind of lost track who is who.
Yeah,
And I find that so
what's
annoying.
interesting is
Thank you,
if you
Becky.
click on their name within comments and then it goes like to their page, very often then you can
Yeah.
see their name. But yeah, when people just have it says like at user dash 79G dash whatever,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, and they haven't created any sort of a picture or avatar or whatever. Um, yeah, I'm kind of like, how am I ever going to get to know you? I'm probably not.
And I don't know why they do that because, I can barely remember human names that, I have no clue with a YouTube ID. So, yeah, that they do mysterious things. So Mandy Lovett says, been sugar-free low carb for 7 years, switching in and out of ketosis. However, had just been diagnosed with hypercholesterolemia and started on statin. Is that for diabetics?
No, that's to control cholesterol.
Oh, I see. Okay. And Mandy says very worried and confused now.
So there are a few really good videos out there on cholesterol and the misunderstanding of cholesterol within the American medical community. Statins are the single most prescribed drug in this country. And if you get out and look up videos, I think it's Dr. Cyves, it's Cywes. I think it's Robert Cyves. He's got some videos on it. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who did all. I'm just drawing a blank here on lean mass hyper-responders for low cholesterol, and they get just huge LDL numbers. But there's also multiple types of LDL. There's like good LDL and there's bad LDL, and it depends on the particle size. So, but most doctors, they just run the base lipid panel, and if your numbers are high, they want to put you on a statin. And increasingly, research is showing that there is no correlation between high LDL and coronary artery disease. It's you either, especially if you are on a low carb diet and you have control over your blood glucose. But I'm not an expert. I kind of, whenever these questions come up, I point people to that, and I'm not confrontational enough to get into an argument with my primary care physician. So what I did, and this was a podcast topic, I knew that I had a physical coming up. There was going to be a lipid panel done, and I just took this handful of, there's probably like 4 or 5 different supplements for about 3 weeks prior to my lipid panel, and my LDL just came in perfect. HDL, great. Triglycerides, low, everything was fine. And I'm like, okay, well, I now I've avoided that conversation passively, and I'll just go back to not taking those until my next physical.
Yeah, I actually have very limited knowledge about these medication. I mean, I've probably been to doctors for about 5 times in my entire life, and and my parents, I don't remember them having this type of problem. They were quite slim and they never had problem with foods. But the thing is, a lot of information, particularly about cholesterol, about fats, etc., they're so ingrained in people's, the consciousness. It's very hard to shift, and particularly, as you say, if your own GP is being misled or not really updating themselves with new knowledge, it's an uphill struggle, and they're supposed to look after your health and etc. So good luck, Mandy. And yeah, so I want to ask a sort of day-to-day sort of your eating, food eating sort of routine, actually. So what is give us an idea in terms of from morning you wake up, a typical day when you're not fasting. What is your eating routine like? I mean, for today, for instance, I know it's about, what time is it over where you are right
1:30
now?
p.m.
Okay, so I don't know whether you had lunch. If you haven't had anything, what would be the
So,
typical
well, today
day
wasn't a
for
typical
you?
day because I had to bang out a cooking video real quick this morning. So I actually ate what I cooked this morning. That'll be Friday's video on Serious Keto. But a typical day, I get up. I'll wake up without an alarm clock, generally around 5 a.m. And then I go out and put in about 5 miles, a combination of either, well, I've got run days, in which case, I'll run 3, walk 2. And then if it's just a walk day, I'll go out and walk 5. So, and then I come home, shower, shave, all that, and then I have my morning coffee. I've got a great big Yeti tumbler that holds 3 cups of coffee, and I'll throw some collagen powder in there, and maybe a little heavy whipping cream or something. Then I don't generally eat anything until mid to late afternoon, and then it's usually some sort of a snack, like a handful of nuts or some keto crackers and cheese, olives. It's always something savory. I don't generally gravitate towards sweets. And then dinner, which I'm finding myself getting. I don't really honestly love the term ketovore. It's, we're subdividing keto all the time and creating new tribes. I prefer just to say,
People are good at that.
my dinner is predominantly protein. There may be, a little something green in there. Um, but that's about it. And like I said earlier, I eat until I'm satisfied. And then once I'm satisfied, if there's stuff still on the plate, it gets wrapped up, and maybe that becomes tomorrow's snack. Or if my wife is working second shift on a day like she's going to be today, then I'll dip into the leftovers. But I used to eat. I forget whether it was Jim Gaffigan or some other comedian here in the U.S. And he was talking about how he went to his doctor, and his doctor's like, yeah, you're pretty overweight. Do you stop eating when you're full? And he said, I don't stop eating until I hate myself. And that's how I used to eat. I ate until I felt sick, until I had to,
There's a lot of people nodding right now.
and now it's just, I don't even like to feel full. I hit a point where, I'm like, okay, I feel fine. I feel satisfied. I'm done. And I push the plate away, and that's my eating style now.
Well, that's the thing, and I talked about it over and over again because people go, "Well, what's the benefit of being on keto? Because why can't you just have a balanced diet, just eat moderately?" But then they're missing the point of what it is. And people, at least like me, it's once I start eating carbohydrate for a period of period of time, the amount of demand for carbohydrate would increase. And as a result, the amount of food I need increases as well. And don't ask me why. My body just, either that brake was broken or whatever it is, maybe it's a condition thing. It's a trigger for me. It could be a combination of emotional and physical. I don't know. Someone will have to enlighten me on that. But all I know is that if I eat a certain way, high carb, which I have been for a long time in my life, there's just no break. There's an emotional need. I know physically it doesn't make sense, but you just want more food. And next meal, you want a bigger portion, and your body doesn't need it. So you go, you feel really guilty, and then the cycle continues. So I think people who goes, why don't you just eat a sort of regular diet? Just stop eating when you're full. These are the people who have no problems, and I wish them best of luck. But that's not me. So.
Well, also, at least here in the States, a lot of just the regular eat a balanced meal type food is not that high quality. It tends to be, and I'm not being the food police, the ingredient police, or anything like that, but a lot of it is just, it has been processed to the point that your body doesn't need to expend any effort to metabolize it. It just goes in, and then you're ready for your next hit. I mean, the last time I had a burger from McDonald's was probably 7 years ago or more, and I was stunned at how little I needed to actually chew it. There was just, you put it in, and it's just, there's
Melt in your
no
mouth.
effort from mouth, from entrance to exit. There's no effort that your body goes through, and it's not good stuff. And and I think plus a lot of the additives that go into it, especially some of the seed oils. And again, not being the ingredient place, if people want to eat, canola, drink it by the gallon, knock yourself out.
Don't
But
do
for
that.
me, I feel the inflammation, and that's one of the things that's very difficult to explain to people who have never been without inflammation. They think that, oh, this is just what it feels like. I'm getting old. My joints hurt. My back hurts, or I've got brain fog or whatever. They think this is the way you're supposed to feel, especially as you age. And once you get rid of that, and then you're like, oh, wait, this is how I can feel. That's why I don't eat this way. That's why I choose to eat keto instead, because and periodically I'll remind myself I will have an off plan day, and then I get what I call the carb hangover. It's just all the next day you feel lethargic and you're lacking in ambition and you're hungry again. So,
For, yeah, for me, it's not even, I don't even need to wait till the following day. If I, I'm like you, and I always tell my viewers that if I crave for something that's carby and it's been kind of in my mind, I eat it because I want to get it out of my system rather than constantly fighting it. And I know from my experience that the more you fight, resist something, the more it bounces back. I know that's physics, and so. Um, so I sometimes would eat, some bananas, or I love lentils. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, it's a highlight of my day if I ever, have some lentils. And even gluten free, even if it's gluten free, I can feel that immediately, maybe just an hour later, or instantly, really. I think, once you're on a keto for a while, your body kind of learn a new way of being. It knows when something is not optimal. When you eat something that's not really serving the body, your body reacts to it. But, and as you said, a lot of people think that's normal to feel lethargic, to feel tired after a big meal or the day after. It's just one of those things. And they constantly live in what I called, it's kind of a sub level of health, but that's what we think that's norm. So until you experience wellness, and people have a different interpretation of that. But for me, is that you have freedom of the body, like you said, freedom of movement. You can do whatever you need to do in life, not being, athletic and run marathon necessarily, but just being able to do things. Your body is not fighting against you. And that's my definition of well-being. And until you experience that, you don't know what it means. And also another thing you pointed out really well with the example of McDonald's. I often call those kind of combination of food kind of golden triangle of three things, which is refined carbohydrate, refined sugar, and fat. These three things doesn't matter. You can pretty much sum up all the fast food with these three things. And once that combination happens, food is extremely easy to slide down. You don't even know because you don't have to
mhm.
chew. And if you don't chew, you don't know you're eating. In a way, your body doesn't get any signal. And also because it's so easy to consume, you just eat more. And also, the sugar high and low definitely drowns all the sort of satiety signal your body should be giving you. And if you do that for a long time, your body would be, your system would be broken. It's hardly surprising.
Well, I think for a lot of people, and you kind of touched on this a moment ago, they they don't feel miserable enough to make a change. They're not happy, but they're not miserable. It's kind of like being at a job you don't like. Every Monday you wake up and you're like, oh, I got to go to this job, but you don't hate it to the point that you're going to go out and find a new job. So you just have this sort of steady state of misery that isn't quite enough to make a change until you have that wake up moment. And for some people, it's a health scare. It's, okay, well, you're now a type 2 diabetic or whatever the case may be. But For most people, I think it's such a gradual decline that it never clicks for them. It's sort of like the metaphor of boiling a frog. You put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out because it's a shock. But you put it in room temperature water and gradually heat it up, the frog will stay. And I think that's sort of the health thing for a lot of people. There's never that moment where they either have a medical emergency or some sort of an epiphany that it's time to make a change. So,
That that was so well said. That was so well said because there's so many people out there that've gone through some sort of physical trauma in terms of illness, stroke or whatever. They come out, they would tell you that don't wait till you have that stroke before you do anything, and it applies to other aspect of our life if because we if the way we treat food is the way we deal with life a lot of times. I just recently went through a in yoga teacher training to kind of further my education on yoga. And I remember one of the my fellow yogis, he was asking the teacher a question. He says, well, I have a friend. He's extremely wealthy and he has no problem in life, but he's so miserable. He just couldn't find purpose for life. And I was thinking that it's because this guy hasn't suffered enough. He hasn't hit his rock bottom because sometimes that's what it needs to propel you to go upwards. Like, when you hit the rock bottom, either you just give up or you find the way up and it can only get better. But until sometimes people just need to go a bit deeper, hit the rock bottom a bit harder before they're able to change. And it's not right or wrong. I think we'll have our timetable to do things. It's the same thing with any kind of addiction. And for me, that's food as well. And I think, if you've been in the UK for more than 10 minutes, everybody drinks a lot. So, there's a social element of drinking that's, it's prevalent to, in our lives. And so there are a lot of things that or cigarettes, some people smoke, they're less and less now, thankfully. But sometimes we kick ourselves or we judge others and thinking, why don't you just do this or that or the other? But sometimes the time is not right yet. They're not ready. They're not ready to change. And you can't talk someone into doing something that they're not ready to do. And I think diet is definitely one of them because everybody knows what is good for them, but we're not able to do it for whatever reason.
no, I agree 100% on that, which is why I don't get especially zealous preaching about keto. I when people are ready, they know I do it. They can come to me, but I think most people, and this gets back to your previous point about rock bottom. Most people live just getting by, and that was me for a long time. In fact, I envied the notion of hitting rock bottom because I thought once you do, there's only up. But I was just getting by. I was too scared to make any sort of a change career wise. I was part of corporate America, and I needed those paychecks, and I was scared to make a move. But sometimes life will make those decisions for you, and it did. And I had done a video on this. It's a 6-part series, but the start was really kind of how I hit rock bottom, and then found that the first thing I needed to do was fix my health. That if your health is in good shape, you can take on a lot of other stuff in life. You can handle a lot more emotional stuff. You can handle a lot more challenges in life than you can when your body's all broken down and miserable. So I took control of my life or my health first, and then let that kind of be the blueprint to take control of my life.
So what would you define was your rock rock bottom moment? And how long ago was that? Was it 7 years ago?
This would have been in
7, 8 years.
2018. So there were a lot of things that happened. I had been laid off just shy of my 20th anniversary with General Electric. 20 years of service. They weren't all contiguous. My health was not good. I was 75 or more pounds overweight. I don't know exactly because I quit weighing myself at a certain point. I couldn't stand the heartache of seeing that number on the scale every morning. So I quit weighing myself. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without being winded. I couldn't do pretty much anything without working up a sweat. I would go to get a haircut, and the woman that cut my hair, she'd put on the little apron on me or whatever to catch the hair, and I would just be sweating. I was just dripping, doing nothing. So
Yeah.
health not very good. The day after my son graduated from high school, he told me that he and his girlfriend were gonna have a baby. There was a big sequence of events, and I hit the point where I'm just like, I'm not sure I want to keep living because this sucks. I don't know what to do. And that was pretty much it. I sort of had a quasi nervous breakdown and decided it was time to fix myself.
Wow. Yeah, I think your body would let you know when it's ready to change, and obviously it's a lot of time triggered by external things, but our body is not here isolated in space, where the way we are is so much influenced by things going on around us, and the stress level and the outlook on life. How you feel about your body could have tremendous impact on how you see the world. I remember I've never been sort of obese as such, so people never kind of perceive me as having weight problem, but I've been having weight issues, battling with myself pretty much all my life. I was a aspiring dancer, and but puberty hit, and I didn't know what to do with my body. And since then, even when I stopped dancing, that issue continued, and it got to the point. Obviously, there were a few things going on in my life when I was quite young that kind of made the eating pattern worse. I think, it's just the whole big circle of things that eating issue is not isolated. It's definitely to do with emotion and your psychological state. And yeah, I think, I've probably come to the point of I have to do something about it, or I'm not going to go on many times in my life. But I don't know whether you have this before.
Yeah.
So I want to know. Okay.
She's heading off
Oh,
to work.
okay.
I'm trying
I
to
need
make
to
you a
grab my
Keto Chow
cat
shake.
to kiss me.
Close the garage.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I forgot. Usually
Good?
I make her a Keto Chow shake to take with work to work with her, so she's got that in case she gets hungry.
Was it your lady friend?
That was
Your wife?
my wife.
Oh, okay. Oh, hello. What's her name?
Terry.
Terry.
Once she leaves, then my lady friend will come over.
Let me borrow your husband for a couple of hours, please. I'll give it back to you. So, yeah, I think, food issues is there's so many things, but your physical, health in terms of, like you said, you feel maybe not great about yourself, and also with external things, with jobs and stuff, that's got to be the terrible combination of things. So was it the first, well, shall I ask this way, is it the first rock bottom though? Because the reason I mentioned that is that I have many in my life, and I'll make some changes, but nothing like this time that I'm able to stick with. I mean, we could talk about why that is, but in the past, when I try to make major changes, particularly with my health and my weight, and a lot of times I end up feeling more defeated because the method of choice just did not work. So it kind of made the matter worse in many ways because I have this accumulation of failures that I have to carry with me as I move forward. So I don't know whether you have that in the past as
Well,
well. So
I've only had one true rock bottom, but there have been multiple instances where I've, tried different diets. I had done Atkins probably around the time I was 30. And our understanding of keto now and the support mechanisms for keto or a ketogenic lifestyle now are infinitely greater than they were 26 years ago. So, back then, yeah, there was not much in the way of any sort of a keto resource. Keto cooking, it was basically I was making bacon cheeseburgers, no bun, a lot of mayonnaise, and felt very restricted in terms of what I could eat. Also, didn't have any understanding about electrolytes at that time, so energy levels were pretty weak. I don't know that I ever fully got fat adapted. So I would be out mowing the lawn, for example, and just exhausted. It's just a struggle, pushing the lawnmower. And I was losing weight, but the Atkins starts off seeming really cool because you're like, I can eat all the bacon I want. This is great. And then you hit a point where you're like, oh my God, I don't know that I can eat any more bacon right now. So, I had done that for a while. I had done the, what is the name of that stuff? It was a fad thing for a while. The HCG diet.
what is that?
HCG is like human chronic gonadotrophin, something like that. It's a hormone, and I know that it's produced, I think, as part of the female menstrual cycle. I think it's what gets measured when you take a pregnancy test. But I also know that it's often used in the bodybuilding community when people are taking testosterone to kind of be, I think, a little bit of an anti-estrogenic or something. Anyhow, basically, it was a very, very low calorie diet, and you would use these insulin syringes and inject HCG down into your abdomen, and again lost a bunch of weight. But these things are not sustainable, which is what I love about keto, because I don't like using the word diet. I choose either dietary lifestyle or way of eating, and I don't look at this as something that ends. To me, a diet is something you do for a short term. You lose the amount of weight you want, and then you go off the diet. To me, I look at keto as this is the way I eat. So I don't have to worry about going off of it at some point and dealing with the
Well,
slingshot or weight gain or whatever.
I totally agree. I think all methods of changes in terms of food works to some extent, but whether it actually works is how long can you do it for? And I think that's the difference with keto for me as well, because the diet that you just mentioned, I've never heard of, but I probably have tried everything under the sun, and I think I actually had a little bit of experience with Atkins as well, and I was vegetarian at that time. I wasn't vegan, so I was eating dairy. And you know what happened? I ate a lot of cheese to the point that I swear that was probably why I went vegan. I just couldn't eat any more dairy anymore. But it just wasn't sustainable because ultimately I didn't know why I was doing it. I knew I had to reduce the carbohydrate. I understood that, but I didn't really understand it in terms of the science behind it. And whereas now we have a lot of information and channels like yours or mine that can help us with some layman's to understand the basic science behind it, because otherwise you're just following blindly. You pull out a textbook and go, you have to do this way or no way. But in actual fact, it doesn't work like that. If you want something to to be able to sustain, to be able to do it for a long time, you simply have to bend rules sometimes. It's just the way it is. And it's probably good for you because then you know what rules you can, bend. You could, you like they say, you need to know the rules to break the rules. And so Atkins was a miserable failure. I was probably on it for about 6 months, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was really fed up with the food I ate. And any kind of diet, if you don't enjoy the food, there's no way you're going to stay on it. It doesn't matter how great it is. And that's why, diets like low fat, put aside the kind of body, physical impact that might have on your body. You just can't do that. Or calorie counting, you can do that for a while. You just can't do it for a long term. So let's look at the comments. There's a few coming in. And Steve, if you have anything that you would like to talk about based on the comment, let me just look at that. Oh, so this is Nelson. Nelson is one of my regulars as well. Nelson says, who we are is symbiote living together with our microbiome in our intestines. If we feed them well, they in turn reflect good feelings to us. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about microbiomes and the sort of food that kind of benefit for that. Do you have any insights?
So, fortunately, there are some good things on keto that can help out with your gut microbiome, including and I don't know if is allulose available in the UK as a sweetener.
No, not yet. Not
So
that I'm aware of. We're very
I forget whether
limited
that's
over
a
here.
prebiotic or probiotic, but that as a sweetener has become more popular here in the States versus some of these alcohol sugars that, frankly, I can live without. I don't care for the way that they affect me. I think also one of the things that so I talked before about when I came off the fast and I had some kefir and some kombucha. They're a little carby, but here's the thing. This is a quote from Dr. Eric Westman, who I adore. He said, "There's no such thing as keto food. Keto is a metabolic state. You're either in ketosis or you're not. So choose your carbs." And for different people, it's going to be different quantities. So I may decide, listen, today my full carb allowance is going to be kombucha, and everything else is going to be fat and protein. But it's the other term that Dr. Westman created that I love is internet keto, which is all these influencers that say, "Oh, this isn't keto, this is keto," and so on. If you go back to when the term the ketogenic diet was coined, now I admit that Dr. Russell Wilder didn't invent it. People were eating some form of low carb, before then. It's sort of like Christopher Columbus discovering the United States. He just put a name on it. But if you go back and you look at the original material from him from 1923, he didn't say you can't have this or you must have this. He said, here are the macronutrient breakdowns and here are some things I recommend to get there. Certain things are going to be discluded simply because they're not going to fit within that macronutrient structure. But that doesn't mean like you can't, like, I had a gram of sugar. Who cares? It's a gram of sugar. How far down the ingredient list are we going to look for evil? If you are managing your carbohydrate intake to the point that you stay in ketosis, I don't get real worked up about, this is keto or this isn't keto, because it's about the metabolic state that you're in. That's a little bit ranty.
Yeah. I think for your channel, you probably get a lot of people asking you what the right amount of net carbs, you should be consuming.
I get more people just trying to be ingredient police on me. Like, I can't believe, you're eating an almond. Aren't you afraid of oxalates? Like, if I were, I wouldn't be eating the almond. It's the dose. The dose makes the poison. And it's not like I'm eating a pound of almonds a day or something like that. there is an ingredient out there, every ingredient out there, every cooking method out there, the microwave, aluminum foil, plastic, whatever, it doesn't matter. Somebody has got a problem with it. And, you either just decide, hey, listen, the dose makes the poison. And I prefer, if I'm going to fear something, I would prefer to fear something that I know specifically affects my body or is, I think, a clear and present danger to my life. And I'm not going to get worked up about everything. I will avoid the highly processed seed oils just because they don't make me feel good. They make me hurt. Canola makes me hurt. Soybean oil makes me hurt. So that's why I avoid them. And I think everybody
Yeah,
needs to take ownership themselves. If you have an allergy, then you don't eat something. But there's only so much bandwidth I have for fear, and I'm not going to fear everything.
Absolutely, because at the end, we're talking about sustainability. I mean, if you're just afraid of everything, and it's very easy to be scared by whatever you read on Google, and if you do that, before you know it, there's nothing you can possibly eat. And there's so many things to consider, like environment and everything. Everybody's trying to tell you don't eat this because it's bad for this and that. I think we can only do the best we can. Even being a vegan, there might be things that people go, well, you might not be consuming animal products, but indirectly, you probably harm a lot of creatures. And I totally agree. I have no debate on that. From the moment I get up to the moment I go to sleep, I'm sure I've harmed a lot of things, living things, not knowing. But this is the best I can do.
Well,
So
and Dr. Ken Berry, when he talks about doing keto, it basically says, what's the right way to do keto? You do the best you can. And in terms of what is sustainable for you in terms of habits and dietary choices and what you can do financially as well. And because if you can't sustain it, then it's no good. It ceases to have any value. So it's better to be 80% perfect at keto and to be able to sustain it long term than to be 100% good and after a couple of months you just can't do it anymore, either because it's too restrictive or you can't afford it or you're not living up to the standards of certain internet influencers. So
yeah,
if
and
if most people just
go on.
got keto 60% right, their lives and their health would improve dramatically, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's not to chase a hard number, and it's tendency. People, particularly if they just start keto, they want something that's trackable, something that's tangible to hold on to. I can totally understand that, but at the end of the day, there's if you do that, then you just run yourself into a corner and you don't know how to get out. The thing is, you just have to listen to how your body responds. If you feel good, that's all it counts. Ultimately we're after well-being. We're not trying to be the model keto warrior or anything like that.
Well,
So
some
yeah.
people, they're lost in this ocean of information, misinformation, and disinformation that exists on the internet, and they want to just be told, just tell me what I can eat, what I can't eat. Tell me how many grams of carbs I can have. Should I be doing net carbs? Should I be doing total carbs? What do I do? They just want an answer. And I think then when you have people out there, influencers, and they want to give you here's the one size fits all approach, it's going to be the strictest approach. So Dr. Eric Westman, as I said, love the guy to death. He's got I think he calls it his prescription strength keto, and that's going to be a lot more strict, but it's going to probably work for everybody. If, however, you want to take a little bit more ownership of your body and start trying to figure out what can I eat, what can't I eat, what affects my glucose, what affects my ketones, what affects my inflammation, that takes more work. But eventually it's going to lead to a more customized and, in my opinion, sustainable dietary lifestyle.
Yeah, I think we simply need to be practical with our approach, and rather than trying to strive for perfection, because it isn't there. That's not how we can, that's how we do health. Our body changes all the time, different season, different time of the year, different time of the month. We're different. So in a way, we just need to be adaptable. And in order to be adaptable, we have to equip ourselves with some knowledge. That there's just no, getting away from that. And when people reach out to people like you and me, asking for a number, ultimately they're looking for shortcuts, right? And I don't blame them. I probably do that myself. But in order to know what is right for you, you simply need to, some experiment needs to be there. And also knowing that nothing is absolute. If someone tells you a number and say, just do this, it will work, it's probably not correct. And probably not sustainable. So, and I keep trying to say that to my audience, but I think, people still want to look for that magic number.
And I think there are certain people, they want to sell their version, their method. This is my keto is the right keto. Buy my book, or whatever it is. It's just, and we had the comment. It was back there. Well, there it is. You put it right up there. Everyone is different.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Absolutely.
We have differences in our metabolism. We have differences in our genetics. We have differences. I mean, one of the things I get this comment routinely. I'd done the resistant starch series, because there's claims are just rampant on the internet, like, boil rice, then chill rice, then microwave rice, then chill it again, and then now all of a sudden your body won't absorb the carbs. And I'm like, maybe that's possible through retrogradation or something. I'm not a food scientist. I'll give it a whirl. I'll try it. And I tried it, and look, my blood glucose still spiked. And I would get viewers that didn't understand why I'm doing this experiment. And they're like, so you're telling me that everyone in Asia that eats rice is wrong. I said, no, that's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. I was testing, can you cook rice and chill it and do something to it that magically will make it not impact your blood glucose? But we're different as well. I mean, just because someone has lived in a part of the world where their diet has consisted of a given food item for centuries or millennia doesn't mean it's right for people on the other side of the planet. Northern European, we can handle dairy and alcohol pretty well, but you go to areas of Asia and they can't. Does that make one of us right or the other wrong? Or it just means we're different. So appreciate the difference, celebrate the difference, and understand that the only person you're in charge of is yourself. And, figure out what works.
And I'm so glad you brought up resistant starch, because it's one of the things I wanted to ask you. The reason I discovered you was actually through research on resistant starch. And I think it was early day of my channel. I was already on keto, and I kind of learned about resistant starch. And I have a video that I went on some 10-day experiment, not as scientific as yours, but I did that, and that's how I found you. And it was shortly after when I did the maybe the keto fries video that you kind of get to know me. But I found you first. So and so the great thing about your content with those videos, because first of all, you are extremely courageous. You actually stabbed yourself multiple times in order to test your
That was
blood.
Before I had a continuous glucose monitor. There was a lot of blood being drawn.
I know, and I was so amazed by that. I said, "Well, this guy's brave, and he's very methodical, and there's some sort of scientific, method to it." So, what is your conclusion? You touch upon on the the results a little bit, but can you elaborate that in terms of what is your view on the resistant starch?
I think that in some situations, this is going to sound like I'm totally hedging my bets here, but in some situations, it seems to work a bit, but not enough that I would recommend it to someone who's keto specifically. I mean, it's I would describe it as being poked in the eye with a slightly less sharp stick. You're still getting poked in the eye. If I decrease a 50 point or 60 point glucose spike by 20%, yeah, that's statistically significant. But practically, it's not. It's not a big deal. I went from a 60 point spike down to a 40 point spike. It's still a spike, and it's still significant, and it still has the potential to cause me harm if I do it continuously. I think that when we see commercial products that list resistant starch claims or ingredients, that's where I get, trust but verify, or distrust and then verify is my attitude. I will test those products, see if I experience a spike. I think there is scientifically a way to do it. But does that mean that companies are necessarily doing it, or are they just slapping a resistant starch or resistant fiber moniker on an ingredient? So I think there are a lot of sort of confounding factors that go into the whole resistant starch argument. And what I find is very interesting is when I've done these videos and I look through the comments, there will be people that say, "Thank you for proving that resistant starch is a real thing." And then I'll get comments that say, "Thank you for proving that resistant starch is a load of crap." And then, then I'll get people, "Well, it's obvious you had an agenda. You wanted to disprove this. It's obvious you had an agenda. You wanted to prove this." I'm like, well, the fact that everybody disagrees in the comments means that I must have done it right, because I didn't come into this thing with an agenda. Different. I was just curious. I wanted to know if this means I can eat sushi. Awesome. That would be wonderful. I would love it. I love sushi. But if it doesn't, well, I can live without it. So,
so you did see some changes in terms of how your body responds to it, but just not enough for it to be meaningful.
Yeah. The other thing too is any device that, especially blood glucose monitors, like there's like the Keto Mojo, for example.
Okay.
The FDA's standards and the ISO standards in Europe are fairly relaxed when it comes to consumer equipment like that. So I could probably do it right now if I felt like sticking myself a few times, do like 5 glucose readings in a row and see numbers that vary by 10, 15, 20%. And timing has a lot to do with it as well. So unfortunately in this country, a lot of healthcare practitioners will tell diabetics, test your glucose after 2 hours after eating something, which to me, by then it's well past. I mean, I typically will see a spike in the 45-minute to 1 hour range, and generally have returned to baseline by 2 hours. So I think there's potential measurement system issues. There's all kinds of, you said it was scientific. I would say pseudo scientific.
A lot more scientific than mine.
I'm a sample size of 1, and the testing apparatuses or apparati, I don't know what the plural is, that we as consumers have are not scientific. So, like I said, when I've done the tests, I've seen something there, but I don't know that it's enough. It's not enough that I'm going to start eating potatoes or rice, or there are plenty of true keto-friendly alternatives to those things. And after 5 years, I'm happy with those.
And I remember when I saw one of your, I think maybe second round of your experiment, you were eating some potatoes, and you were comparing potatoes when you drizzle a lot of fat versus less. And you actually found that, if I remember correctly, the one you use fat with a potato, when you consume with fat, you actually get less of a spike. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, so consuming consuming a carbohydrate with fat, there's supposed to be a handful of different hacks that you can do, but consuming with fat, this has been proven. In fact, Dr. Jason Fung, in his book The Obesity Code, talks about an experiment that was done where I forget how many women they had, but it was all women for whatever reason in this experiment, and they were eating strawberries as the carbohydrate, and then eating it like with heavy cream versus not, and their glucose response was considerably less when consumed with fat. So,
That is so interesting for me because even on keto, the fact that we consume probably a higher level of fat comparing to what the mainstream suggests actually helps with appetite a lot in terms of suppressing it. Or I don't want to call it suppressing because it sounds like it's supposed to be more, but actually just keep it in a very steady level. Do you find that as well?
yeah, and there are other things that you can do, and I've thought about doing a test on these, but I get tired of eating some of these things. Like I don't want to like eat a bunch of potatoes just to prove whether or not having a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before eating them causes a decreased spike, or doing 40 air squats, or going out for a half-hour walk. All of these things supposedly will decrease a glucose spike. But to me, I think these are things that then maybe you have in your back pocket for a situation where you're going to, for whatever reason, you have no choice, but you got to eat this potato. I don't know when that situation is, if it's a company picnic or a mother-in-law that you don't want to get angry at you, or what, but there are things that you can do to lessen a glucose spike. But just because you're lessening a glucose spike doesn't mean that it's necessarily good for your ketogenic lifestyle, I guess is how I
It
phrase it.
would you would definitely be out of ketosis, I presume. But I think for people, if they just want to, they don't particularly want to do keto, but they don't want that terrible effect of sugar high and low. Perhaps it's an option.
Well,
I don't
Tim
know.
Ferriss talks about it in his book, The 4 Hour Body, where was basically, he called it slow carb. So his carbs would be these slower digesting carbs, and then every Saturday he would have like a 10 to 14,000 calorie binge, just eating everything, a whole pizza and a box of croissants and things like that. But he would do things like he would do 40 air squats before eating the croissant and things like that, and supposedly would minimize a glucose response accordingly. I don't know if that's the healthiest way to treat your body.
That's a hard way of going it. It's quite hardcore. I don't think if I could follow that diet. Um, yeah, I think there's so much information. And recently, it's probably just less than a month ago, there's a guy called Michael. I should remember his name. He is known in the UK as the intermittent fasting. He kind of coined this term of 5-2. So it's very similar as what Dr. Jason Fung is suggesting with sort of doing intermittent fasting for a few days, etc. What is kind of recommending, or he basically went on as a guinea pig himself, and he discovered it was really beneficial for him. So he would eat 5 days, kind of whatever you want, and then fasting 2 days, but not particularly on keto, even though he does recommend reducing carbohydrate. And I don't know, because if you're not on keto, not eating 2 days is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So, and I actually know some people that's on that. I don't know how long they can do it, but some people who may not want to go keto per se, they just say, well, 5 days, I just eat whatever I want. But, as long as I can manage not eating for 2 days. Have you tried anything like that?
No. I guess that's the end of the answer. Just no.
Yeah, for me, it just sounds too hard
I
to do it weekly.
I mean, it's harder when you don't have a family member or partner or whomever that's in it with you. I think that's what dictates a lot of how and when I eat. So, um, and it gets more difficult, especially when you're the cook in your household.
Yeah.
So I think if people try these and it's effective for them, great. I don't. I guess I want to phrase this the right way, because so many people treat keto or carnivore or whatever like a religion. I kind of do in a way, but my way is I don't care what your religion is. If you're happy with your religion, then good on you. But don't try and start a crusade to force your religion on me. So dietary, if you want to be carnivore, if you want to be vegan, if you want to be paleo, if you want to be South Beach, whatever, if it's happy, if you're happy, if it works for you, then awesome. I'll keep doing what works for me. You do what works for you, and we'll all just be happy. There's plenty of other things in the world to fight over. Let's not do it over this. If we're both happy and healthy.
Yeah, I don't really get the notion of feeling so strongly you have to tell people what to do. I mean, by having a channel like you or me, we could give the impression that we're trying to tell people what to do, and it's never my intention. I just put whatever I eat out there. If I have a nice recipe, I share it, whether you do it or not, or you adapt it, whether you're vegan or not. I think majority of my viewers are probably not vegan or even on keto. There's some of them just, gluten free or whatever. They're looking for recipes. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think people tend to want to tell you what is right, but ultimately, do we really know what is correct? And we, as you said earlier on, you only have one body as a reference, unless you're a scientist or anything like that. And there's so many things to fight about. I don't think, someone's diet is worth that energy to do it.
And
Put in a better use.
a quote that I absolutely love and I heard it when Dr. Ken Berry was being interviewed by Dr. Eric Westman, which is, "This is what I think I believe currently." And it shows to me this tremendous amount of self-awareness, just knowing, like, hey, right now, based on the knowledge that I have and the experience that I have, this is what I feel is right. But I know enough to know that I could be wrong, because I've been wrong in the past. We're always learning more. And so this is what I think I currently believe is right for me. And that's why I do it.
Yeah, and I very often say that it's not my goal to be some sort of keto guru, whatever. Maybe one day I'll go off keto, and they just if it's there's other things that's more better for my body and I feel better on, then I'll just do that. So it's not about doing one type of diet or the other. Ultimately, we're just trying to feel good and to be healthy, so we can do whatever we need to do in life. And you touched upon the sort of keto products earlier on. This is another thing I want to ask you, because on your channel you do a lot of food reviews,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And which is kind of, I don't know, envious is the right word for me, because in the UK we have so few. Occasionally you go to food, health food shops, you see the keto bar and you look at the macros, it's not that keto at all. So what is the state like in the States, and what do you think about those products, ready-made products
So
versus
one of the main reasons I do these reviews is I recognize that not everybody has the time or energy or aptitude to make all of their own food. It would be great if we all did. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I need something easy and convenient. The problem is, so many of these products that are labeled keto or keto friendly, there's no regulation on it. And even some of the keto certification agencies out there, you read what you do. How do I get the keto certified label? Well, I send you $1,000 and then I can put the keto certified label on. That's it. I can tell you what the macros are, but I could lie about the macros. I could tell you what the ingredients are, but I could lie about the ingredients. Here's my money. Now I can put the sticker on my product, or maybe I don't put a sticker on it. I just say, hey, look at this. I've got keto bread. And I think a lot of people, and I fall into this trap as well, you go to the grocery store, you see keto, and you're like, oh, sweet, that looks really delicious. And oh, how convenient that would be. But it turns out not to be. It turns out that, it's going to spike your glucose or maybe knock you out of ketosis or something. And, so I test these things sort of as a public service. And sometimes I find things that they're great. They're like, oh, they taste great. It didn't move my glucose. Look, now I've got this, I say, in case of emergency, break glass, I've got it there in my pantry. If it's one of those things where I'm having a hunger attack, which doesn't happen often, or suddenly something comes up, I can't eat dinner tonight, I gotta go pick up my grandson or something like that, I can grab one of these bars and I'm good to go. I would say, in terms of like breads and tortillas that I've tested, probably 70% are not legit keto. And by that, I back to the Eric Westman thing, there's no such thing as a keto product, but I would say not compatible with a ketogenic lifestyle. Just because the glucose spike is too high. I've actually got a spreadsheet right here, and I'm looking. These are all like the tortillas that I've done, and the majority of them are spiking glucose, or they'll have one of the fats that I don't care for and cause inflammation. So yeah.
So you would try the product and then you would do the test to see whether it spikes. I think,
and then a lot of them get thrown away after the fact. I'm like, I'll try. Well, I hate throwing away food, but I'm not going to continue to eat something that causes me pain or messes with my keto. So the thing is, I got to start remembering to save the receipts and use these as a business write-off.
Yeah, but I think it's such a good type of content because, as you said, well, I can fall into that trap as well. When I get busy, my tendency is to want to buy something that's ready-made. I think everybody's like that. And you are actually testing, you have some sort of scientific reference to say, well, this could happen to your body and is not fully compatible. Rather than, because a lot of people go on keto and they go, it doesn't work. Yep. And it's because they're probably eating something that they think is keto, but not really.
One of my first questions when people say, I've been doing keto and I'm not losing any weight. Like, so what brand of keto bread are you using? What brand of keto tortillas are you using? Like, how do you know? Like, because that's, I tell most people, listen, keto bread and keto tortillas, you should probably steer clear of altogether until you have hit your health or weight loss goals. Once you are in a maintenance phase, then I think they can be an occasional treat. But again, use my reviews as a guideline as in terms of which ones are going to be okay and which ones aren't.
It can be such a pitfall, I think. If people's keto diet is consist of, loads of products like that, and thinking that it's been vetted, it says keto, it must be keto, and then it doesn't, produce the result they want, and they give up, and they just think it doesn't work out for them.
So one thing that's pretty cool that's going on, it's in beta testing with the Levels Health app, and I guess it's also going to be coming out. I've got this Ultra Human Air ring.
What is that?
Well, this is a ring that measures like everything. I'll be doing a review of that next week, but they've also got an integration with a continuous glucose monitor program. They use the Abbott Freestyle Libre, which I don't care for as a continuous glucose monitor. I prefer the Dexcom products. But both, it's taking a long time to me to get to the punchline on this. Both levels and ultrahuman, apparently there is some massive database now that's been created by people that are using continuous glucose monitors and blood glucose and putting in the results and the product names, that you will be able to take your phone and go to the grocery store and you see a product, scan the barcode and see what the community average glucose spike or glucose movement or lack thereof was. So it's not telling you specifically what's going to happen to you, but you could say, all right, well, 30 people have tried out this tortilla and the average glucose movement is 40 milligrams per deciliter. So I should probably be concerned about that. So I think
that is so
the fact that
interesting.
we're able
But you do need a number to build
all of this information is pretty slick. So even if, well, and here in the States, both Dexcom and Abbott are going to be releasing over-the-counter continuous glucose monitors by the end of this summer. The question is, will it provide data down to like the milligram per deciliter, or will it just give trending information? Like it'll say high, medium, low, or I went backwards there, high, medium, low. I don't know yet, or whether it's going to give a specific number.
So in terms of, so do you just wear it and it just does it for you, or do you need to do anything particular?
So for the continuous glucose monitor? Yeah, you wear it. It's there's an app.
You don't have to stop yourself.
There's an applicator that you use, and it doesn't really hurt unless there are a lot of alternate sites, and I think there's a channel, I think it's called like Type 1 Talks. This guy does all kinds of testing of like different CGMs, different body locations, etc. Because like the Dexcom, for example, there's only one approved location, which is the back of the upper arm. However, one of the strength training things I use is the X3 resistance band training. So I've got a band around my back, and I'm doing like a bench press, but it's I've got the band is going right across where the CGM is, and that just doesn't work. So there are other places that you can put them, though not officially sanctioned by Dexcom, and trying to find a place where it's not going to go into like a muscle, or you want it kind of between muscles, which is why there is a good place on the back of your arm there. But abdomen will work. I've tried front of the thigh, but I don't apparently have enough fat there, and you wind up hitting a nerve, and then it just hurts constantly, which is not fun.
Oh,
so
my.
I can't show you where my current CGM is. Because this is a family program.
It's a family program.
But it's something that if I were wearing a swimsuit, you wouldn't see.
Okay.
So we'll leave it.
Yes.
And I'm not sitting on it exactly. But
wow.
So yeah, you use it, and then they last, depending on the manufacturer, 10 to 14 days. And then you get the data continuously, like. Let's see here. So right now, this is weird. I just installed this one yesterday, this Dexcom, and I find that the first 24 hours, I always read high. So, then I go and I'll do a blood stick and I'll see what my actual blood glucose is and then recalibrate the device. So, right now, I don't know how well you can see it. There you go. It says I'm at 106. Yeah, I guarantee you I'm not at 106 today.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, it's it's 106 milligrams per deciliter, which is not how they measure it in the UK. I forget what the UK measurement system is, but it winds up being a lot smaller number. But like I said, if I were to test with my Keto Mojo right now and do a blood draw, I bet you I come back probably in the 80s. So since I've had this,
and that's the good range.
Yeah, I mean that's 80s.
Okay.
I think the Levels Health app generally looks at being under 110 is a good thing, but I don't know, if the numbers vary depending on if you're a type 1 diabetic, type 2 diabetic, or not a diabetic at all. But
so when you monitor those numbers, other than looking at the changes of those numbers, do you feel physically? Are you the question I'm trying to ask you? Have you through the tests that you've done, are you building up some sort of intuitive way to tune into maybe something is one way or the other? Is there any manifestation in your body?
No, I mean, the main thing that I will use it for is to test the impact of products I've not had before. So commercial products, because if I'm making my own food, which is what happens most of the time, I know what I'm eating and I know how it affects me, and it's pretty clean keto. So the other interesting thing is when you see certain events that spike your glucose that seem to have nothing to do with food. For example, I was pulling on my shirt. This was a while back while walking, and as I'm walking through the door, I hit my elbow right on the funny bone on the door frame, and it hurt. And there may or may not have been some profanity, but there was also like a 35-point glucose spike that occurred. And I think
Oh,
that's
wow.
probably, it's built into our body, the whole fight or flight thing. You get that surge of probably glucose and adrenaline that says, all right, you know, you are experiencing harm. You need to have this kick of energy to overcome it. Because
That is so
because
interesting.
when I'm aware that something is going to be painful, like having a tattoo done or something like that, which is not altogether pleasant sometimes, I don't have a glucose spike. So it's got to be a surprise. I've been told by people that just being frightened by something, suddenly startled, can cause a glucose spike. So there are lots of things that can cause it. There are things that can mitigate it. And it's ultimately being able to connect the dots between what's what. It's not like you're going to become a diabetic because you just keep banging your elbow by accident, but being able to relate it to specific food items, I think, is important.
But there is that's such an interesting thing to say, because you will only know that because you're wearing that device. Otherwise, most of us probably don't make the link. But there's a lot of evidence of how stress impact on how our hunger or how we feel in terms of how we deal with food. I mean, people talk about comfort eating. Whenever we're stressed, we look for
Mm-hmm.
that sort of pleasurable things to eat. And I think that there are a lot of external stress, maybe not so abrupt or acute, like bump into your elbow, but there are a lot of things that kind of build up in our lives that kind of start to push us, just kind of change our eating behavior, because we just instinctively trying to find some sort of remedy to our stress. And the easier things is, probably go to food. And a lot of people have issues sort of losing weight, even though they think they're eating good. But when you're under a lot of stress, the environmental stress or events, etc., it could have effect on how your body responds to weight loss as well.
So I'm gonna answer a question that Becky asked here, and then share
Okay.
another observation that it seems.
Is it this
Yeah.
one?
So I don't
Okay.
feel necessarily anything when my blood sugar goes high, but I could tell you after the fact that it went high because I'm hungry. There's if I'm consuming pretty much no carbs, which is the way most of the day goes, I don't get hungry. But if I do a test on a tortilla or bread or something like that and it spikes my glucose, I spend a good chunk of that 2 hours, as I'm waiting for the glucose to clear and get a final measurement, wanting to eat again. So there's that. And then the next day, there's this residual hunger that you've given you've given your body a taste of the forbidden fruit and it wants it again. So there is definitely a physical manifestation. Now I can't tell, like, at the moment I eat something, if I didn't have the continuous glucose monitor and I ate something, I'm like, I can't feel a glucose spike. I can only feel the aftermath. The other thing that I discovered that is pretty interesting, from back in my heavy drinking days, is that consuming alcohol, because I would never consume like mixed drinks. I was keto, not doing drinking beer, obviously, but dry wines, that wouldn't impact my glucose. In fact, I would find drinking dry wine or hard liquor caused my glucose to go down, and actually in middle of the night it would go down dramatically, to the point that the alarm would go off on my phone saying, okay, you've got urgently low blood glucose. So it's interesting, just because something, like, I could eat something high carb but have some bourbon with it and it would mitigate the glucose response. That doesn't mean that it's a good thing. That doesn't mean that I did something right or healthy for my body. So just because you can,
Why do you think that
I don't
is,
know.
Steve?
I'm not smart enough to know. I'm just smart enough to observe and make the connection. But, so just because there are ways to hack, a glucose response doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something good for your body.
Yeah, well, because I get asked quite a lot in terms of, what alcohol, can you consume alcohol on keto to start with? And also, if so, what would be some good choices? And, as I mentioned slightly at the beginning of the stream, that if you've been to UK for 10 minutes, you probably end up in a pub. So drinking is very much part of the social life. That's how people interact with each other. You never go, well, can we grab a coffee? Yeah, you do that with your friends, but with everybody else, let's go grab a drink. Let's have a drink sometime. And that's just part of the life, everybody's life. People don't bat an eyelid. But at the same time, so when I started keto, I kind of started to think, well, what should I be drinking? And I have to say, I haven't drunk for about a year because it's just not compatible with teaching yoga. But that's my own choice. But I generally find liqueur, like whiskey, brandy, because it's got pretty low sugar content, isn't it?
It's
So
essentially zero
comparing
carb.
to wine. Yeah, exactly. But I didn't know it will actually lower your glucose if you eat
It's
it
something
with.
that I have witnessed for me. Now, I periodically will get the question as well about alcohol and keto, and my response is, you can, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. If I brought you any other food item and said it's zero carb, but it does have calories and it's going to slow down your metabolism and it's going to make you sleep not so good and it's going to affect your physical performance, working out, whether that's yoga or running or strength training. And it's, you're going to have a little too much of it and start behaving poorly and, not maybe remembering all the things you said. Would you still like to eat this particular food? Probably most people are going to say no. But you drinking somehow is more socially acceptable. Now I went, I forget, was it 2022? I forget what year, but I decided on January 1st I was going to stop drinking for 30 days. That's all the more promise.
I remember those
That was the
videos,
extent of the
yes.
promise, just 30 days. And I made it 30 days. And then I said, well, you know what? I'm going to try 100 days. And I made it 100 days. Then I thought, okay, I'm done counting. We'll just, I don't feel that I need to remember specifically the moment of my last drink. And I think I went to August or September and I was at a wedding and they had a toast for the bride and groom. And I had a half a flute of champagne. That was it. And then I don't think I had anything else until October of that year when Terry and I went on a vacation for our anniversary and we did a wine tasting. And then we went out to dinner and I had some more wine. And then because I hadn't had liquor in such a long time, went back to our hotel and was sick to my stomach. So I have
Wow.
found subsequently that I can have a glass or two of wine with dinner from time to time with no ill effect. But 2 glasses even, it starts to affect my sleep. And I love my sleep. And
And also it affects your judgment as well. A
yeah,
lot
I
of
think
people, at least in my
there's,
case.
well, when you live with someone who has always got snacks, crackers, cookies, things like that, and you have a glass or two of wine, those inhibitions can kind of go away. And you're like, well, one Oreo, what's it going to hurt? So
Few
I
chips.
find I find that for myself, I operate better not drinking. Um, and if I can't. Hard liquor is just out now. That I can't do that at all. Wine periodically, but with dinner and not much because, like I said, I love my sleep, and I find that even a couple of glasses, and I see it. I see it in the speed at which I can run. I see it in what I can lift for strength training, and my ego is just far too delicate to handle that sort of a hit.
So are you one of those people whose biggest competitor is yourself? I mean, I tend
I
to be
think
like
that's the
that
way it
as
ought to
well.
be. I mean, it's not I can't
Yeah.
compete with David Goggins or Thomas DeLauer or some of these people. But I can be better than who I was a week ago. So that's the bar I try and clear.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think, the thing to highlight with alcohol is that, people do what they do. And I used to drink a fair bit. I know I live in this country, I work in a corporate world, and it was just one of the things to do. But once you, and for a while, I thought I couldn't quit. It wasn't so much a problem, but as you said, it affects your performances. And also, if you're on keto, your judgments start to go a little bit, and you start to pick up things that maybe not so great for your body. So, and not drinking is everything just feels so much lighter. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't drink; it is a
Yeah,
personal choice.
I
But yeah,
to me, it's whenever someone responds to the video that I did where I'd quit drinking for a period. Um, they're like, I'm on day whatever. And I'm like, I bet you your sleep is really starting to improve, isn't it? And they're like, oh yeah, the sleep is great. So to me, that's such a big deal. I get to live sort of vicariously through them because I went, 54 years or whatever. Well, I wasn't drinking all of those years, but went such a long period of time where, yeah, alcohol was it was a significant part of my life. And, my dad was an alcoholic as well. And so I never thought anything of it. I didn't think that having 10 or 12 drinks an evening was a problem because that's what I grew up around. And now I look back at it and I'm like, wow, that was insane. But yeah, when people ask, my question would be, well, why are you doing keto? What's your reason for doing keto? If you're doing it, for health, if you're doing it to lose weight, then why incorporate something that is going to work against that into your lifestyle?
yeah,
Decide what's more important to
absolutely.
you.
Well, that's the thing. So a lot of times we're so bogged down on sort of day-to-day things, paying bills and stuff. Not that these things are not important, but it's so important to step back so you can see a bigger picture. It sounds so simple, but it really is. And that's why I practice yoga in the sense that it gives me inner space to be able to see things clearly. It's about clarity. And if you're able to see what things, I don't want to use the word what things really are. There's, your reality is different from
Mm-hmm.
mine. But when you're able to see the landscape, what is most important. It becomes a very easy choice. You don't, I think, if you start to think, well, can I stay on keto? Would it inconvenience my life? That's because you haven't really see what is most important. It doesn't have to be keto, just pursue of health, in any shape or form, exercise, that kind of stuff, any kind of lifestyle changes for good. If you're able to see what is most important, it's not even a choice. That's the only way to go, isn't it? So we kind of talked a little bit about sustainability, which is the key on everything we do. Do you have any tips that you could kind of offer to the viewers?
So as I mentioned before with the Atkins diet, when I had done that, we are at a golden age, I think, for keto. And I mean that mostly in terms of just the content creators that are out there making great recipes. I don't feel deprived. There's not a situation where I think, oh my gosh, if I don't have insert food item, I'm going to die. I can make lasagna. I can, whether it's using egg life wrappers or whatever. There's virtually nothing I feel that I can't have. If I want French fries, I got Heavenly Fans fries. Which I do now that they've re-released the baked potato flavor of Keto Chow that I designed. I need to work
Oh,
your recipe and see if I can get a true, potato flavor.
you've got your own
Yeah,
brand.
so I've
Um,
designed 3 flavors of Keto Chow for Keto Chow. There's pecan sticky bun of ultimate awesomeness. I can't believe they let me name it that, but they did. Then baked potato.
do we have it here in the UK?
I don't think you can get it in the UK, and I think right now even
Ah,
I'm not sure you can get it in Canada because of the labeling laws. They need to be all bilingual. So it's kind of a hassle selling U.S. products in Canada. But yeah, it's a nutritionally. I'm not pimping for Keto Chow right now, but it is a nutritionally complete meal replacement. And I created the one sweet flavor, pecan sticky bun, and then 2 savory flavors, baked potato and cream of mushroom. So I wanted to create
whoa.
things that people could use in recipes. So take mashed cauliflower and add the baked potato flavor to it, and you're amping up the protein, and now it tastes like potatoes. Or the number of recipes that
Whoa.
call for things like cream of mushroom soup. So I wanted people to be able to make recipes that they perhaps mom or grandma used to make, and now is now you're on a keto diet and you're or ketogenic lifestyle, and you're missing that, and you can have it now. There are so many great substitutes that we have. So I think the only real sustainability thing for me is making sure that you have some form of keto snackable available, whether that means a jar of olives or a cheese tray in the fridge or something like that, or you've made some keto crackers, or you've gone out and you've bought some Atkins bars or something like that. Having easy things at your disposal in those moments where you could find yourself going off plan, when that little voice is whispering in your ear saying, oh, it's okay, just eat a cookie. And you can say, well, no, I'm actually going to eat this because I have it here. So that's the big thing for
Absolutely, yeah.
sustainability. I don't go to restaurants very often. That's a challenge, and it's easy to find yourself saying, what the heck, I'm out here. This is a once a month thing. Let's eat. Let's dive face first into that bread basket.
Very tempting, very
And then
tempting.
it's easy
Yeah,
once you
but
get on that slippery slope as well to I think extend it past a given meal. Oh well, I already screwed up today. I might as well go to town and have some ice cream. And then the next day you're like, well, it's the weekend. So I feel like if I'm going to go off plan, I plan to go off plan. That's the other thing. I'm going to say this is the day because it's my birthday, or this is the day because it's 4th of July, or whatever it is. But I'm going to limit it to one meal, and I'm back on plan.
you're going to come back, yes. Yeah, I think it's about having a strategy, isn't it? And I so agree with you to have something, really quick and easy. So I think the couple of videos before I was talking about, you know, obviously you guys have a lot more to choose from in terms of ready-made stuff. Over here, I make everything. Most things I eat, and I do go to restaurant, and I don't really have that much problem picking food because I've been a vegan for a long time. I know what it's like to eat differently, but it's really about having something, for every occasion, um, in a sense that so you don't really slip it into the excuse to say, well, I don't have anything else to eat,
Mm.
so let me have some, few slices of bread my partner's eating, or something like that, and that will help a lot. But I also have to say that even if you slip, so what? Just come back, don't beat yourself up. so many times that we fail. Well, not fail, but we went off the wagon and keep staying, off because we beat ourselves up. We kind of think we failed in some way. So please don't do that. It's a long game we're playing here. So um, so you also talked a little bit about exercise routine. So I didn't have a sort of opportunity to ask when you were talking about the walk that you do. So you say you kind of run a little bit and walk a little bit. Is that?
So I run 3 days a week. And the reason I'm doing this is, and I know that there are people, there's the same tribalism with exercise that there is with eating. I'm doing it because I want to improve my cardiovascular health. I'm not doing it to lose weight. I'm doing it because I want to be in good cardiovascular health. I want to be able to run around with my second grandchild the way that I run around with my first grandchild, and so that's why I do it. And then the walking, there are people out there that will 10,000 steps. That's just a made up number. Who cares? Well, I do it because I enjoy it. I get up
Absolutely,
at
yeah.
5 a.m. I'm the only person out besides nature, and I fortunately live in a place where I still see a fair amount of wildlife on any given day when I'm out walking. I see so many bunnies, but turkey.
Whereabout are you? I
I'm
never
in
asked. Which part of the
I'm
US?
in the Great Lakes region in Wisconsin, southeast Wisconsin. So, fortunately, my neighborhood, even though we were one of the first houses out here, and there used to be a lot more wildlife, there is a fair amount of swampland and or floodplain type area that can't be built on because it won't be insurable because it'll flood. So as a result, there are certain areas where there is a lot of wildlife that can live, and so there are deer and
Wow.
turkey and cranes and no shortage of bunnies, plenty of bunnies. So I
Wow.
get out and I see the sunrise and I see some animals and I'll either do sort of a walking meditation, where I listen to sort of that spa type music, or I'll listen to an audiobook. And that's my morning routine.
And you do that every
Try
day?
to. I would say I'm probably 6 out of 7 days I pull it off.
Have you ever tried yoga?
A little bit. My daughter
Sorry,
Courtney is
trick
a
question.
yoga instructor, and
All
she's
right.
tried a little bit. I bought a mat. I got that far. We were trying. Okay, sun salutation, and we're doing downward dog, and all these things. And it's one of those where I felt like, okay, this makes me feel really weak and uncoordinated. So I talked about my ego
So this
before.
make you feel
I know I could
balanced.
get better if I kept trying, but right now it's mostly strength training and some cardio.
Wonderful. And yeah, so there's one message for you here. B Dog. Oh, this is a reply to somebody. I love the savory keto chow too. I'm in Texas, and there's a little walking in South Texas. Wonderful. Sounds great. So one of your fans there. And how long have you had these products? So have they been around
So,
for?
well, I'm not sure how long Keto Chow has been around. I don't even remember specifically when I first tried it because I was kind of opposed to the idea. At the time, I wasn't even, I don't think, reviewing much in the way of keto products on my channel because I fancied myself as a cooking channel and kind of took exception to the fact that people would want a meal replacement. To me, that was sort of flying right in the face of what I do. I'm making the meals. I don't want them replaced. And eventually, one of my viewers convinced Chris Bear, owner of Keto Chow, to send me some Keto Chow to try. And I tried out all the different flavors, and some I really loved, some I thought were okay, and there were a few that I didn't care much for. But then I thought, could I make a flavor? So I went to Chris and
Of
I said, "Can
course.
I?
It's
What would
the
it take for me to create a flavor?" And he said, well, what are you thinking? And I told him, and he said, all right, give it a shot. So I created the first flavor, which was pecan sticky bun, but then I wanted to create more savory flavors because I wanted something that people could use in cooking. And and in the case of especially the baked potato, to replace any sort of cravings they might have for potato products. So
Right.
it was sort of like a science lab slash drug lab because the quantities of ingredients that you're measuring out, I had to use this really accurate to 1/1000th of a gram scale. And you have to even like hold your breath while you're weighing out some of these ingredients because just your breath or wind, a breeze coming through the room could vary the sensitivity on the scale. So I
Really.
created these flavors, and they've been pretty successful. It would be great if they'd make them permanent flavors. They've been kind of teasing it. They release them periodically,
Right. Okay.
but that'd be
Yeah, but
nice.
it's so wonderful. So yeah, so that's the thing because it kind of takes courage to do because you put your name on the product. So, my fear is always, if I endorse something and people hate it, that's why I almost never endorse anything other than, voluntary something that I've, tried and I really love it. I recommend it. And yeah, I just, I get approached, as you know, from with your channel as well, that they sort of come to you, can you do this or that and the other? And they give you like a to-do
Mm-hmm.
list to say, produce this, 5 posts for something and then do a video of 5 minutes or something. I'm just not cut off for
No, I
that.
tell
I'm
all those people
terrible.
no, because
Yeah,
I'll
same
say,
here.
listen, what do you want? Do you want me to pimp your product for you, or do you want a fair and honest review? And if the answer is the former, then I'm not your guy. But
Yes.
if you send me a product and I like it and I'm willing to stake my reputation on it and accept the fact that 90% of my viewers will agree with me, though there's always going to be a percentage that doesn't. It's like a movie or music or whatever. Not everybody likes the same thing. But if I feel comfortable saying, yes, this is a product I like and I will continue to use, then we can talk about some sort of an affiliate partnership. But let's take this one step at a time. And there have been products I've tried and said, you know what, this isn't. I hate to break it to you, this isn't as good as you think it is, and I'm not willing to put my name on it. And I've had other people that have
And
said, no, what we want you to do is use this script, say these things. Here's how you hold our product in front of the camera. Here's what the thumbnail needs to look like. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, no, I'm not your guy for that.
Well, absolutely. On one hand, we sort of talked about this before we came on live, and how privileged we are. We're very lucky to have this platform. But at the same time, I'm so glad you're saying this because sometimes I feel all alone in this sphere of sort of influencer world because they come to you and you look at a product, you go, well, that looks interesting. There's something that I might like to try. And before you know it, they send you almost like not so much a contract, but basically want you to agree with them before they even send you a sample. And I go, there's something missing here. I haven't even touched your product, let alone trying it. And you want me to agree to a deal of some kind.
Yeah,
And
I've described that metaphorically as like picking out baby names on our first date. That's you're way,
way
you're
ahead of
way,
yourself.
way, way too far ahead.
But that clearly happens because otherwise they wouldn't be
Yeah.
doing it. And I felt, who would agree to a deal before you even try anything out? What if you don't like
Well,
it? What if it's just terrible?
here's
And
what I'll tell you.
yeah,
They target specific people at specific stages in their influencer career. When you're sitting at 5, 10,000 subscribers and someone throws some money at you, that's hard to turn down. Here's some free product. Now we'd also like to offer you $500 or whatever it is to say some nice things about our product for 30 seconds at the beginning of a video or whatever it is. That is a tempting thing, especially when you're early on in your journey, you're going to be very flattered to be approached that way. Fortunately, I'm further along in my career, and as a result, I'm not that flattered anymore. Furthermore, I've got sort of a quick scan method before I delete an email, which is 90% of them that come in. When they don't address me as Steve, it's done. Like if you don't even know
Oh,
my
there's so
name,
many.
then they're
You have no
like, hey,
business emailing me.
Serious. I get that. Like Serious is my name. Hey, Serious, we just watched your last video and it was so good. How would you like to partner with?
Yeah, I get that a lot. I get that a lot. And I always laugh. I should have a collection of them and just, tweet them out or something or put it on Instagram. It's so funny. I mean, on one hand, I understand, they try to approach, if they have products, they want people to advertise them. But it's just the way it's done. I don't want to use the word gross, but it kind of is, because you feel like, do you really think I would go for this? It makes no sense. Who does this? Who does something like that?
Well, I could
Yeah.
name
So,
some specific companies and some of their
oh dear, don't.
things, but then by doing that, you would know which content creators kind of
There's
sold
some
out.
sort of usual
So, and
suspects.
I
Yeah.
don't, one of the things that I promised myself when I started this, because I had seen another keto channel kind of talking smack about some other keto channels, and I said I would never specifically reference another keto channel doing something that I disagreed with or disapproved of. I may mention a particular type of behavior and say I would not do this, but I'm never going to call out a channel. And I think by telling you the name of a couple of the products and what their requirements are of a content creator, you would know the channels. So that's why I won't share those.
Right, right. It's so prevalent, and that's why I sometimes feel like I'm all alone in this world. I said, well, this must be working for them. That's why they're doing it. And who's doing that? And why am I not? It just doesn't feel right for 1 second. So I'm glad I have at least have an ally in this crazy world. Just to show this one. Okay, so Catherine Hurley, found by accident, two of my favorite keto YouTubers in conversation. I just died and went to heaven. Thank you very much. I saw a comment earlier on, basically saying, Fanny, you're talking too much and let your guest speak, which fair enough. But again, it's a conversation, and it goes both ways, and hopefully
It gives
both
my
of us
voice a
can.
rest too. I'm proud. I'm starting to get a little gravel here.
Exactly. I'm doing for Steve, okay, guys.
Well, I mean,
So,
back when I was a corporate trainer, I would talk for 8 hours straight in front of a classroom. And, people wondered how I was able to do that. Now I get on one of these and 2 hours later, I'm already getting gravelly.
well, yeah, I mean, people think talking continuously is just talking. It's not. And I learned that just doing a live stream for 2.5 hours, and it's nice to have someone to have conversation to. So, yeah. So, and another question I would like to ask
All right.
you is: we touch upon the mental well-being and relationship with food. So, do you have any sort of practical things that you do to unwind and relax? Because I think, to avoid kind of comfort eating type of mindset, if you know what I mean.
So there are a few things that I do. I meditate. Just it's a mindful meditation. It's not it's not like Buddhism or anything specific. It's more about being mindful, breathing, and being aware of your moment that you're in, so that then you can carry that mentality over into your day-to-day life and just be in the moment. I think that's something that we fail to do very often, and just it denies us a lot of pleasure in just looking around and seeing nature and seeing loved ones and things like that, and appreciating the comforts that we have in life. I think meditation has helped out with that. I do also, I do enjoy playing video games, like with my grandson or my son or by myself. And, I've got a VR headset. I kind of enjoy that. Although most of what I do in VR tends to be like the travel-y stuff where you're like, oh, look, I'm up on the edge of the Grand Canyon looking down. And,
I don't
or,
think I
I'm
could
at,
ever
I'm
do
at,
that.
Machu Picchu or something like that, where places that I would never probably be able to go in real life that then I can visit in VR and look at. I enjoy that, and there are some meditative VR experiences as well that are kind of trippy that I enjoy. So that's sort of my system for winding down, and then just playing with my grandson. He keeps me young.
So yeah, to probably keep you busy, and human connection is just so nourishing, isn't it? But so in terms of meditation, how long do you meditate for?
It's about 20 minutes a day. I use the Headspace app. So what I will do very often is I've got a Shakti mat, which is like one of these spiky mats. I don't know if you're familiar with these things. Some people will actually
Is that for your
practice.
feet?
No, I lay on it. It's like lying on a bed of nails, sort of. Um, I did a video for it, a video review on the Lean Body Mind channel of mine,
Right.
but I'll take my shirt off and I'll lay on that, and it's sort of an experience that you get used to. But I listen to Headspace for 20 minutes, and it's sort of a guided meditation.
Right, right. Yeah, I was interested. Well, I'm a yoga teacher, and I have to confess, I find meditation alone very hard to do. I kind of see yoga as a sort of moving meditation, so to speak. And this probably answer one of the questions that was sent earlier on. This B Dog asking, "Do you do hot yoga too?" And I do. And for my mind, I think I need some sort of distraction. So when you're doing something really hard, like hot yoga, you're in a hot environment, and your body's under a lot of stress, and so your mind has to focus. So I need to be forced to focus. And people think that if you're a yoga teacher, you probably meditate like 5 hours a day. And I actually find it extremely hard unless I'm physically doing something as well. So did you build up the minutes from the
I did,
start,
but
or
also you talked about forgiving yourself and not being overly hard on yourself when you slip on keto, for example. It's the same thing with meditation. You recognize in meditation that you are not going to be able to stay completely focused and clear minded for probably more than a minute. But it's in the recognizing that your mind has drifted, and then be able to categorize it. Say, okay, was that a feeling or was that a thought? Was it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? If it was a feeling, how would I define it? And basically, it's like you take that moment, that distraction, and you put it in a file, and then you go back to focusing on your breath again and being just in the moment. And that's what I love about Headspace is he says, listen, you are going to be distracted. Your mind is going to drift. This is what happens. Unless you're some, I don't know, master, and even the masters, it's like you're developing a skill, which is recognizing that you're distracted. So don't be angry at yourself for being distracted. Feel good that you recognize that you were distracted and that you came back. So
but isn't that just the way we need to approach the way of eating as well? If you ever go off, you kind of expect, as you say, so the planned cheat days, and or even accidental cheat days. It's knowing that you're gonna. Well, I don't want to use the term mess up. It's just natural sort of process that sometimes you wander off the course. But as long as you're mentally prepared for that, you just come back. That's no big deal, isn't it? So it's yeah, that was really a wonderful thing you just said. And if you look at the comments, Curtis actually asked, "How much weight did the two of you lose since you start keto?" Do you want to go for that, Steve?
Well, I don't know specifically because I know when I stopped weighing myself, I think I was 235 pounds.
How much is that in kilos? I don't know pounds.
Alexa,
To anybody in the chat?
I can ask
Anybody who's a
Alexa here.
converter? Okay, so that sounds quite a lot. I mean,
On a
200.
5'9" frame. So again, imperial measurements. Um, yeah,
Terrible numbers.
I was quite a bit overweight, and I stopped weighing myself at that point. I got down to 155 pounds, so 80 pounds. Alexa, how many kilos is 80 pounds?
80 pounds is about 36 kilograms.
36 kilograms. And so it was more than that. Now, I've put some of that back on. Fortunately, a lot of it has been muscle mass. So could I stand to lose a couple yet? Yeah, and I probably will as I continue to run. But I'm pretty comfortable right now with my weight,
Yeah.
unless I want to see my abs, which I'd kind of like to.
Oh, someone just did a quick calculation. Oh, so 235 is 106. And yeah, that's fair number. And yeah, and to answer the question of the previous comment, I don't ever talk about numbers. So I think overall, I'll give you, because I've been so dysfunctional in terms of eating, and numbers always triggering, and I think a lot of viewers can probably identify with that. It took me a lot of courage to even weigh myself in the beginning of keto journey, but because I wasn't tracking anything at all. I wasn't checking my ketone levels or anything like that. So I thought, well, at least I need to see some kind of progress. So I started to weigh myself at that time for the first time in years and years. And I think overall I probably lost about 8 kilos or something like that. I don't know how many pounds that was. It was significant. And just like you, once I gone through that initial sort of quite a lot of weight loss in the beginning, I gained some back and I felt a lot stable and healthy. I think I was slightly underweight. If you watch my earlier videos, I didn't look sort of picture of health, and I agree with, the comments that viewers that said that. But I felt good, but I think my body was still trying to find a balance point, and eventually we'll find it. You just need to give it time. A lot of people give up before that. So overall, probably 8 kilo. But for my frame, I'm 5'6", and that was quite a lot to lose at that time. But physically, I never felt weak. That's the thing. I think I'm probably the strongest I ever felt currently. So that answers your question.
Well, and when people when they get all hung up on weight, I try and help them away from that point. I say come to keto for the health and accept the weight loss as a pleasant side effect. Because sometimes the scale doesn't move, but the way your clothes are fitting start to feel a little bit better, or sometimes the scale doesn't move, but holy cow, my knees feel so much better. Look at keto as a holistic health process, not simply a weight loss thing.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier for us to say because we have been on it for a long time. We're seeing the result and we find the balance point. We're probably both fat adopted in some way. I think I can empathize with people who just started this journey and never done keto before. They, because they want to get hold of something that's tangible for them to see, I'm actually doing the right thing. Something's happening, and obviously your weight will be an indicator, but it's not absolute. It will go up and down. And even during, I have to confess, even during the sort of, my keto journey, I don't weigh myself anymore. And probably I stopped nearly a year and a half ago. I just feel like I kind of know where I am, like you said, how your clothes fit. But when I was weighing myself, tracking, every day, my mood was still, could be affected by it, as much as I kind of, telling people that you shouldn't care because it's a bigger picture. As long as it goes down
Mhm.
in a sort of general trend, should be okay. But still, I think it's a very triggery thing. So, I kind of say to people that if weighing yourself is not your thing, if you're like me that can be triggered by the numbers, then perhaps you need to find other indicators, how you feel. I know it sounds really abstract. It's not really. You just know. I think you just know. I just saw oh, yeah, this is a good question because a lot of people ask this a lot. What's your insight in terms of stalling?
10 kilos in a month is pretty awesome. I think
A
I would,
lot.
you know, hang my hat on that and say, wow, look at what I accomplished. Perhaps a little faster than my body was ready to. And again, a stall, how if your clothes are fitting better, if you have access to a DEXA scan or an in-body scan, and you can see how your body composition is changing, that's something to look at. But I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating when you're actively trying to lose weight, and like Fan said, it is something tangible. You can point at it and say, "Oh, look, I'm down, a kilo or a half kilo today," and it feels great. Looking at the scale and seeing that number move, and then when it stops moving, unfortunately, it doesn't feel great. And you then, I think, need to step back and look at the ketogenic lifestyle holistically and say, all right, what else is going on in my life that are benefits that I've gotten from this besides weight loss? I've talked before about this in podcasts where besides things like inflammation and get ready for a little TMI, no gas. Like I don't get gas, which is, I think, kind of cool. I mean, maybe there are sometimes strategically when you want to have gas, but um, I
When,
don't know.
Steve?
I don't know, clearing out an elevator or something. But I haven't been bitten by a mosquito in 5 years. This is, and like on the 4th of
What?
July, Terry just got annihilated. Not a single bite. So, well, either I haven't been bit or I don't have a histamine response anymore to a mosquito bite. But there's that.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
there's
That's a benefit I never heard of for being on keto.
what's
Wow.
funny is when I mention it, people are like, "Huh, I can't remember the last time I was bit either." So I guess we smell different now. We don't have any sugar coming out of our body that attracts them or something.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it because since I started keto probably about 6 years ago, I haven't had a cold. Because prior to that, I pretty much have two colds a year when
Yep.
changing of seasons, and they normally get really bad. I'll start coughing. It's almost like a just twice a year thing. I got used to it, and I just expected to kind of hit me. But it took a few years for me to realize, oh, geez, I haven't had a cold for ever. I, I'm sure I'll get one
No,
next
I
week
used
as
to
soon as I say that. But
annually, twice a year. It was like February and October. I would get either a sinus infection or strep throat or something like that, and it was like clockwork. And I would be down for a week. Now, if I do on those rare occasions where I'm feeling a little under the weather, it's like a 1 day thing. I've had COVID
right,
a couple of
right.
times, and it's the only reason I know is there will be a change in my sense of smell, and then I'll be like, what the heck, let's just take the test. Not that I care because it's not gonna. Most of the time, I'm just hanging out by myself at home anyway. I'm not like around people, so. But I had the experience a couple weeks ago, or no, it's probably longer than that. But I wasn't smelling things properly, and I thought like I was smelling cigarettes, and that's usually the indication to me that I must have somehow gotten COVID. And I'm like, well, just to satisfy my curiosity, I'll take a test. And, I did. But again, aside from that, completely asymptomatic.
Is that what happens when you have COVID? You smoke cigarette?
For me, that's it. I mean, the first time I had COVID,
Wow, that's so
I
weird.
I lost my sense of taste as well for
I've heard
close
about
to
that.
3 weeks, which is not what you want when you're creating recipes. You know,
Or at
you
all.
make a recipe on a video and you do the taste test and you're like,
Oh
I
my
can't taste. I don't
God.
know.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I thought, well, that would be terrible. I'd rather cough than losing my sense of taste, So, yeah, so I think the immune system is somehow stronger. It doesn't mean you don't catch cold necessarily, but even if you do, you can fight off more effectively. And I think, yeah, it's kind of listed one of the sort of benefits of. So that's what Ryan says. When I had COVID, everything tasted and smelled like burnt toast. So it's like getting pregnant. When people kind of crave for strange things. And wow, I didn't know that. I know that you lose a sense of taste, but I didn't know it manifests in sort of different food items. That's absolutely fascinating. So we are about 2.5 hours into it, and I've got. I think if you have questions for Steve, by all means, ask now. And I have maybe one or two more questions just quickly to run through Steve to gain his insight. So how long have you been running your channels now?
It's over 5 years.
Over 5 years. Oh, so I'm slightly longer, and you
Well, I
have
didn't realize we
more
were having a contest,
subscribers.
but
Of course. And my question would be, what is the most asked question, or what are the most asked questions, since it's like reoccurring?
um, I'll get like what keto bread can I eat? That's I get that all the time. What's the best? Actually, it's what's the best keto bread? And then I have to ask, well, what are your criteria? Because you can have gotta get my fingers over here so you can see me do math. Price, ingredients in terms of how clean they are, taste. Does it spike your glucose? I think those are the big four. You can pick two because that's it. I haven't found I think a bread that hits on three. You can get something that's like, oh, hey, this tastes pretty good and doesn't cost much money, but the ingredients are trash and it spikes my glucose. You know, or you get, hey, this one clean ingredients doesn't spike my glucose, tastes like cardboard. So probably the most common question is what's the best bread, and then I got to go through this sort of Socratic process of determining what's most important to them.
And do they specific asking for products, or I'll say homemade bread is the best, isn't
Or
it?
people will say, do you have a recipe for? And generally, if it's a baked good, I point them elsewhere. I used to bake and I used to make artisan bread, and I love the way flour behaves. Flour is predictable.
Yeah.
Sugar is predictable. Non-keto baking is wonderful and I enjoy it immensely. Keto baking, not so much. Nothing works the way it's supposed to work. Nothing has the same magical properties that flour has or that sugar has. And it's just been an exercise in frustration for me. So I'm like, all right, here, go check out so and so's channel. And I'm like, well, what do you want most? Do you want a dessert? Do you want something sweet? Or do you want something that's more, true bread like? Do you have a bread maker? How much are you willing to invest into ingredients? But yeah, baking is in my past.
I think, yeah, baking is kind of the holy grail when it comes to keto cooking, isn't it? So, and I totally identify with that, because when I first went keto, the first thing I asked myself, can I ever have another piece of bread ever again? That's the kind of anxiety kind of creeping in. And so one of the first recipes that I made was flatbread, because all my recipes is actually things I want to eat myself at the particular time, and so I have to, if I'm developing for myself, I work harder, so I think it's only human nature, because the most obvious suspect when it comes to going keto is that you can't eat bread. Bread is the carbohydrate representative. And so the focus would be for me at the time, and now ever really, is to create bread recipes that can kind of, compete, well, not compete, but can fulfill that need. And a lot of what we eat is having that sort of comfort level that we like from a certain food. Bread is one, and maybe mashed potato, like the type of thing, and fries. Why is that recipe popular? Is because it fulfills a certain need that people feel that they can't fulfill being on keto. So, and I think that's where the recipes, the value come in, when keto content creators, they're able to fulfill these needs that kind of ease the anxiety, so to speak, when people choose to eat this way, and realize there's so many things you can still eat, you can still enjoy the flavors and textures, they're there. And once you kind of relax a little bit, you can focus more on what you need to do. So, and extend from that question, would you ever be writing a cookbook? Because I'm writing one, so I'm asking.
The problem is, I have a pretty thorough distaste for administrative tasks, and like I don't even especially enjoy. I don't really enjoy putting the recipes out on my website. I'm like, oh, this is work. I would need an assistant who works for free, and
Don't look at
yes,
me.
I had a conversation with Carolyn Ketchum from All Day I Dream About Food, and
Okay, yes.
she's like, I would never do another cookbook, especially like a hardcover. She said, I made maybe an e-cookbook or something like that, but the problem is working with publishers. She said it's a nightmare. They're like, well, like 70% of the recipes in the cookbook can't be something you've already published online or in a video. I'm like, nah. So I
Wow.
may at some point do something, or maybe I find somebody that wants to help. But then you get the food photography aspect. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. I'm not going to say never, but I don't know.
Yes, you could. But that's so interesting. And so the reason she didn't want to publish the hard copies, because that you have to work with designers, you have to work with publisher. But what about self-publishing? What did
Well,
she
that's
not consider
she
that?
subsequent to our having that conversation, she did self-publish an e-cookbook, and so I mean there's to me though there's something about the holding a cookbook in your hands. I've got a massive cookbook collection upstairs. I love them. I mean, to me, I read a recipe in a cookbook, and it's like reading a short story. I don't look at it as directions to make food. I look at it as a short story of I've got a bunch of actors that are ingredients and how they all came together and what was the conclusion. That's how I read a cookbook.
Interesting.
So, and one of the things that I thought, if I ever do one of the things that I am going to do is recipe sequencing. So whether it's you buy an ingredient and then here's how, like, oh, I only use this much cilantro, for example, in this recipe. What do I do now with what's left over? Or, okay, I made this particular dish and now I've got leftovers of that. How can that then be repurposed into a new recipe rather than just reheated and eaten as a leftover? So
Right.
that's, oh, hey, you made this tortilla recipe of mine. Now here's a recipe for pulled pork. Now here's a recipe for enchiladas.
So that could be really useful, because we have leftover all the time, and most of the time we just reheat it. And if you can turn it into something else, and people always ask me to do like what what you eat in a day or whatever. And my food is so simple. I eat a lot of food that on my channel, but I also eat a lot of, salads and vegetables, stir fries. It doesn't make very exciting, videos. But on the point of publishing, I feel quite lucky because I'm a designer. So I'm going to my ebook is coming out this week. Just plug my book because people have been asking for a long time. So it's a collection of the recipes from the channel, and also put into kind of. I choose the kind of recipes that are able to lay a firm foundation on day-to-day cooking, but also on the print book front, I'm doing it myself because that's kind of my thing. So in a way, I save a lot of money. I don't know if I could have done that if I wasn't a designer and I have to pay someone to do it. I can see that become a problem because it's definitely not cheap to hire, designers or have.
And the time that's spent doing that is time that would be otherwise spent creating content, which is how I get paid. So,
Right.
I mean, it's I can't. To me, writing a cookbook while creating content is like changing the tires on a car while you're driving down the Autobahn. I can't do it. I do want to answer Curtis's question here about Vital Wheat gluten because I think
I saw that.
so. He says,
Let me find it.
Vital Wheat gluten a good thing or a bad thing? It's a thing. If you have celiac or a gluten sensitivity, it's a bad thing. But I think one of the things that a lot of keto people confuse, they see wheat and they think, oh, wheat, it's forbidden. Well, again, like I said, Dr. Russell Wilder did not say wheat is forbidden. It tends to be forbidden just because you can't fit it in. But if it's some sort of byproduct of the wheat, of fiber or gluten is not a carbohydrate. Gluten is a protein. So it is compatible with a ketogenic way of eating. And it's been, in my opinion, it has been unfairly demonized. Gluten, I love gluten. I love the chew of gluten. I'm salivating.
It creates great texture.
That is something that I think is missing or was missing in a lot of keto products until recently. And by products, I don't just mean commercial products. I also mean recipes, because you can incorporate that into recipes and get that chew that I think a lot of us miss. I think that's what a lot of us crave and miss in keto are certain textural things rather than necessarily flavors.
Yeah, I think I only have 2 recipes on my channel that use Vital Wheat gluten, and I do use it sparingly because I know some people might be sensitive to gluten, and people come to my channel to look for gluten-free recipes. But definitely, if you have no issues with gluten per se, I choose to eat gluten-free, but I'm not particularly that sensitive to gluten. It does weigh you down. It could create some digestive problem if you consume too much. But otherwise, it's a great agent, for bread making and pasta making, that kind of stuff.
For most ingredients, I tend to fall back on the quote from Paracelsus, which has been paraphrased to "the dose makes the poison." The actual quote was, what is it? All things are poison, and there is nothing without poison. It is the dose that makes it poison or not. So the paraphrased version is better and tighter and cleaner, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what. If you have too much of it, then it's a problem. And for some things, a very small amount can be too much. But for other things, you can consume an awful lot before it becomes a problem. And
absolutely,
I look at most of the things that whenever people are being the ingredient police on me, I'm like, well, how much are you actually getting? Okay, so if you have a product, you're using some beef bouillon and it's got maltodextrin in it, and you're using a gram of it, like it's not the end of the world. If you're looking through the ingredients list and something falls into that 2% or less than category, I've had people say that if it's not in the first like 5 ingredients, who cares? I don't know. You create your own set of rules, but I think some people do get a little bit ingredient crazy. If you don't have an
Yeah,
allergy, what's the problem? And that's it.
yeah, ultimately, we have to assume the viewers watching our content, well, they're not leaving their common sense out of the door. If you have medical issues that you're not supposed to eat certain things, obviously don't do that. But I don't think you should be telling everybody that it's dangerous, because it's not. And, there are people who lost their lives because they drink too much water. If you remember this drink, game show
Mhm.
competition of drinking how many gallons of water in the shortest amount of time, the lady lost her life. So, you have to be sensible, and just, it's a balance. And our body is not completely, defenseless. We have ability to fight back certain things. So, as you said, that, it's not just about not contracting cold. Is when you have it, you can fight back. That's more important than anything. And also there's one, oh yeah, that is one comment here I want to bring out. So it's from Tully 23 fan. I follow you long time, but I think I never got your name. Fair enough. And Steve, I know, doesn't like to be called Mr. Serious
Mostly I
Keto.
don't like.
Is that
For a
what
while, I
people
was
call you?
called the chaffle guy. Because I had done enough videos on chaffles.
Oh,
They're like, "Hey, chaffle guy." So,
yeah.
I don't mind if someone saw me in public and they're like, "Serious keto." That's totally cool. I'm fine with that, and I've had that happen.
Well, at least they address you as
But
Mister. That's pretty
but
polite, I'd say.
it's when I get emails from companies that want me to, sell their dehydrator or tabletop dishwasher. There's some strange. I had one company that reached out, um, women's undergarments. That's what they're like. We think you'd be a perfect
You
fit
are
for our
kidding
product. I'm
me.
like, I'm not sure about that.
They should be contacting me instead. Well, they're clueless. First of all, I'll forgive them if they don't know my name. But I have companies approaching me to promote their potato chips. I was like, well, hey, clearly you haven't been watching my channel. That's kind of off the menu. So yeah, you get a lot of that. Um, so let's have a look. So we talk about, yes, and final thing, this is a selfish question for me. So as a content creator, I'm pretty rubbish because I would go off, sort of missing for a few months and then come back, and I don't know how to produce sort of my content on the as productive as you. What is your trick? Or have you got any tips for me? Because I'm trying to be more consistent for my viewers, so they don't like,
Fear,
I get,
fear of becoming
oh,
irrelevant. Um, I had taken a month off like a year and a half ago. It was October of a year ago, so about a little over a year and a half ago. Just I was burnt out and took a month off, and the channel has never recovered. Um,
oh wow,
I'm making about a third of what I was making before then. It went right off a cliff, and I think it's some people have said, well, keto just isn't triggering the algorithm the way it used to, but the moment I take any sort of time off, it resonates through the channel for a while. And I made the decision that I was going to do this full time. I was going to accept the fact that I would be making a fraction of what I made back in corporate America, and I would find a way to make it work. I would find a way to pay the bills, and I have. And but I do find that it's you gotta kind of keep going. And I think the other thing too is have lists always. Whenever you have a thought, don't think, oh, I'm going to remember that. I'll remember that as a
I have a
recipe,
list.
or I'll remember that as a podcast topic, or yeah, that's a product I want to review. You got to write it down. And then, because then you can
Yes.
always go back and be like, all right, what am I going to do? What am I going to do this Friday? I need a cooking video. Um, the thing I got to try and probably do. So my advice for myself is, and I'm not saying I'd make great quality videos by any stretch. Um,
You're successful.
I I compare like to Dennis from Black Tie Kitchen. And Dennis and I have kind of become friends over the course of a couple of years. We text each other a lot, and he puts so much effort into his videos, making them so cinematic and professional looking. And he was
Very
storyboarding
polished.
and all of
Very
this stuff.
polished.
And he burnt out. And so we haven't seen a video from him in a year and a half. And I talked
Whoa.
to him, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. I know that there are times when he misses it, but I think he put so much of himself into it and so much into the quality of his videos that it became very difficult to sustain. And there are times when I look at, I'll record a video, I go in thinking, oh, this should be fairly simple and fairly straightforward. And I get done and I'm like, wow, I have 50 camera shots here that I need to edit together. Um, and then one of the things I've quit doing is trying to talk while I make food, because I'll either screw up the food or I'll screw up what I'm saying. And then I'm like, okay, great. Now that's shot. So now I just focus on making the food, and then I'll record a voiceover after the fact. That's helped. But I also think too, that very often it's what's important is it a good recipe? Did I make something that's good and it's something that people will make and that they will put into their rotation, rather than trying to get super fancy with all kinds of camera angles and stuff like that. So like this Friday's video is going to be pretty simple. It's
Well,
and it was
I
great because I
think
shot it, I recorded it, I did the voiceover, I edited it, I posted it, I made the thumbnail, all in the course of about 2 hours. And
no,
it's
never happened in the history of my channel. Um, well, the thing about voiceover is so interesting. I used to do that in the early days, and I realized I can't do that. I hate voiceover. Anything. The only way I can do it is I talk as I do it. And a lot of people think my voice on my channel is actually voiceover. No, it's real time voice, because I have to talk my way through what I'm doing. Probably because that's why I'm teaching, because that's just a natural way for me to do it. And if I have to voice over it, you can tell, because my voice, that it would sound like I'm voice over something. So that is really interesting. And also, I went through a phase of trying to produce one recipe a week. That didn't last very long. I think it probably lasted about 3 months, and I was burned out. And I said, well, do I want to just stop doing what I'm doing because I'm so stressed? First of all, you have to come up with ideas. And then you have to, particularly with keto vegan recipes, pretty much every single recipe is original in some way, because I have to invent it. And that requires experiments. And that cannot be done in a week. So I'm not very productive as a YouTuber. So I'm a pretty rubbish one, and I'll take that title with no difficulty. But I do want to be consistent in a way. But that leads to another question I would like to ask you: is that do you watch other keto channels?
no. I don't watch other cooking channels. In fact, here's what I watch on YouTube. And I've had people think that I'm like a snob or something, that I don't watch other channels. I adore so many other keto content creators and appreciate what they do. But it's sort of like, if you're good at making Excel spreadsheets, that doesn't necessarily mean you want to watch other people make Excel spreadsheets. You're like, this is what I do. I don't essentially want to watch other people do what I also do. And if I do, it's going to be something that I'm not going to make anyway, like baked goods. And then I'm like, okay, wow, this is cool. I'm probably not going to do this, but this is cool. And most of what I watch on YouTube falls into that category. I'll watch carpentry videos. I'm not going to do carpentry, but I mean, I watch it and I'm like in awe of the skills that these people have. Or the other thing, this is going to sound weird. I watch these videos of people that like they own a landscaping company and they'll find some house where the yard is just all run down and over, come with weeds.
Oh, and they
And they're like,
fix
hey,
it.
I for free,
So
I'll do this for
therapeutic.
free. I just want to do this. I watch that and I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like I could probably watch someone just use a power washer and like clean off playground equipment. And, to me, that's the sort of video that I want to watch. Um,
I'm totally with you. I don't watch Keto channel per se, and partially because like you said, if your spreadsheet analogy, I do find a lot of channels that are really good. But also, there's another thing. Reason is that so I can keep my head clear, so I don't get influenced and get
there's
dragged, off
Yeah,
track
there's that as well.
doing things
I
that's
have plausible deniability. If I happen to make a recipe that's very similar to someone else's, and someone says, "Well, you copied from Fan," I can say, "No, this is just a case of great minds thinking alike." I had one recipe that I've been working on for a long time. I just called it the recipe because it was a batter that I felt could be multi-purpose. It could turn into a tortilla. It could turn into a lasagna noodle, or it could be dehydrated and made into tortilla chips. And it was coming along, and it came along to the point that I let Dennis from Black Tie Kitchen try it out, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is great! This is really good." And then, but I felt I was like 95% of the way there. And when you're creating a recipe, that's the worst place to be, is 95% of the way there. That last 5% is so hard. But I had incorporated some of my paid channel members. I said, who wants to be sort of Steve's keto test kitchen and try these out? Here's my list of ingredients, here's the amounts, and here are a couple of variations that I would like some people to try out. And one of them said, hey, I just saw a video by Ketogenic Woman, and it looks almost exactly the same as yours. It's like
oh
one ingredient
no.
different. And I'm like, who? What? Huh? And I went over to her channel, I opened the video, and I'm like, yeah, this is
Oh dear.
really close. I had incorporated a couple of modernist cuisine ingredients that she didn't, but I'm like, this is so close that
You start to
I'm like,
question yourself.
I can't do it because it's gonna look like I copied her or something, and so no, I shelved it, and
It's probably healthier not to look around too much because the YouTube world is so trendy in the sense that I think that for me, if I go and start to look around, first of all, like what you said, you might realize that what you're about to produce for next week is very similar to someone else. But also, I I don't trust myself not to be influenced by what I see. It might be inspirational, but at the same time, you start to do, oh, so that video is really getting a lot of attention. Maybe I should
and
do something similar.
I'll do one of those
And
maybe once or twice a year, like this whole cottage cheese flatbread thing.
right.
I'm just seeing it everywhere. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try. And I tried the very first recipe I saw on Google, which apparently is not the standard recipe, and it didn't turn out. And then everyone's like, oh, it didn't turn out because you didn't follow the recipe. I did. I just happened to follow the wrong recipe. But then I got the idea. Can I do something to improve upon it? And that's I like doing that because it not only allows me to give credit to someone who went before me. I can say, I saw this or heard about this on so and so's channel. I tried it out, and so then I tried this, and this was my little spin on it. I would have never thought of it had it not been for this other channel. So you can kind of give credit and for the inspiration while putting your own spin on something. So I'll do that a couple of times a year, but for the most part, I'd rather just draw upon my own creativity.
Yeah, and I think that is much healthier internally because otherwise you start to chase after something that's not that's unpredictable. So, for instance, in the YouTube sphere, it doesn't matter. Not even keto. You see a lot of channels who fall into the pitfall of just chasing the
Yep.
trend, thinking that it's going to produce more views. Now, which I understand. I'm not necessarily knocking that, but at some point, something's going to give if you go down that route. Ultimately, it's the old-fashioned way, follow your heart. You have to be authentic, or there's no need for me to be here. If I'm going to just do what everybody does, then why do we need serious keto? Why do we need have any fans? So I think at the end of the day, so when the channel is getting less views or whatever, because I can be more relaxed because I'm not doing this full time. I think the pressure is different and the approach is different when you're doing it full time. You have to treat it like a job. But ultimately, I thought, well, you have to come back to day one, the day you remember why you started this channel, and always go back to that. And then you remember, because, I want to bring this and share this to people, and go back to that always. And it will keep you grounded. And I think that's the difference. Well, again, it goes back to the theme of being sustainable. How do you do this for a long time? Is to stay, as grounded as possible.
So I'm going to answer this question from Curtis here, and then it'll probably be about time.
Okay. Yeah.
We were wondering if we'd make it an hour. It's been almost 3.
Is this one?
So how do I feel about people redoing recipes on your channel? I don't care. At first I did. I had, for me, the holy grail when I was starting keto wasn't bread, but a tortilla. I wanted a really good tortilla. And I developed one using baby corn, because baby corn is mostly fiber. And I created a corn tortilla that I thought was a darn good corn tortilla. But I refused to put out the video until I hit 10,000 subscribers, thinking that it's just a tiny little channel. Some other channel might take it and steal it and claim it as their own. You can't copyright a recipe. It's, you put it out in the public domain and it's in the public domain. I can't, there have been content creators that have done certain recipes and then gotten all up into other content creators' faces for using their recipe. Again, not going to name names, but
No names.
To me, I always try and give credit. And if even if someone was an inspiration, it may, my recipe may be 6 different, degrees of separation away, but their recipe inspired me. They made me want to try this out. So I always try and do that. And I think one of the examples that I think is one of the most egregious examples of people not giving credit was there was a bread created by a woman named Deidre, and it's called Deidre's Bread. She only has 2 videos, I think. She did the bread once in a bread pan and once in a bread maker. And it was a pretty solid keto bread. And I went through and I did a search, all these channels, best keto bread. And I made a spreadsheet because that's what I do. I make spreadsheets. And looked at all the ingredients and saw how much, like a number of them were direct copies. Maybe they listed the ingredient in grams instead of in cups and tablespoons and things like that. But once I did the calculation, I'm like, exact same recipe, and they're not giving Deidre credit in the video. And I just thought that's, pretty sleazy. So I vowed that anytime someone is even a bit of an inspiration to me, someone throws some cottage cheese in a microwave, and I'm like, oh, okay, that, Keto Twins. That was the inspiration for me doing, the chips.
Those girls are delightful. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I used a different process and, some other ingredients and stuff, but the thought wouldn't have occurred to me. So I give them credit. So that's the thing. And you know what? I can't be bothered if if someone doesn't want to give me credit, if someone wants to duplicate my recipe and say it's their own, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, I remember this topic kind of came on last time we spoke on your podcast, and because of the keto fries, a lot of people making sort of well, most of them credit to me, and I think I remember you asked me whether I was bothered by that. I sort of have a slightly different view on recipes because my channel is kind of slightly in unique position because most recipes I have to kind of change so much it becomes something else. I have to reinvent it to a great extent. But I do see recipes as a kind of a heritage from people before us. It's kind of a world property. It's a bit like because, for instance, keto fries. I didn't invent fries. I just used different ingredients. I didn't create a concept of fries, so I cannot claim ownership of it. And so, and I kind of see that the only recipes that is pretty much a direct copy was from my mom cooking, and I credited my mom for that stew, a tomato stew and tofu stew that she did. She used to make for me, but I think it because no recipe stands on their own. It's a kind of extension from something else, unless you just invent a brand new food, and then perhaps you can have your name on it. But I'm a lot more relaxed about I can understand because there's so much work into developing a recipe, and I think it's not really fair if someone basically just do the same thing and not even mention a word, which I understand. But yeah, I think it's ultimately if people intentionally taking someone else's idea and present it on their own, I think they know innerly, and I think that's enough punishment. Anything else is my yoga teacher way of looking at things. And yeah, I'd say that's a really good question though, because when everything we produce is public property in a sense, it's on a public platform. There's no way to kind of regulate it or policing, which is part of the beauty. People can do all sorts of things. I don't know whether you've seen those reaction videos. That basically people sitting there watching someone else's content, and that's a form of content as well. So
it gets very iterative. I mean, so now do we have a reaction video to the reaction video? I mean, how many?
I've seen those.
Have you seen these videos where people are like, "Let me show you how much money I made on this video," and then they'll do like a week later, they're like, "Let me show you how much money I made doing the video on how much money I made doing that video."
Oh
And
dear, yeah,
you get
slippery slope. Yes, but I'm so glad that I get to speak to you, because for a lot of times, being a content creator is a lonely place, and also being on keto can be a lonely place. And so it's good to talk to someone who's like sane, who's not getting sucked in this crazy, online platform completely. So I'm really grateful for your
well,
existence.
thank you, and the feeling is mutual. Like I said before we went live, any influencer is going to have a shared set of experiences with other influencers. And the further you drill down into a niche, like keto, for example, we are going to experience very similar things. We have viewers that overlap. We're going to get questions that overlap. We're going to have experiences on the social media platforms that are identical to one another that no one else understands but us. So it is good, and it is therapeutic for us to get together from time to time and
It's
talk about
kind of sanity check. So yeah, absolutely, it's a healthy thing to do, and I hope we're do this again very soon. Do you have some final words for the viewers?
No, I'm grateful that for all the folks that tuned in and stuck around. I mean,
Yes,
3 hours.
we're hitting 3 hours.
So
We're still here. Yes.
I'm appreciative of I don't know how much overlap we have between viewers. I'm certainly seeing a lot of the same names. So I'm grateful. Just like I say whenever I do my podcast, that you took a little bit of time out of your day to to spend with a knucklehead like me, and I do. It means the world to me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for people who have, if you made it so far, congratulations, you're special. And we like you. I think I can speak for Steve on that one. So thank you very much, everyone. And hopefully we can do this again soon. And have a great morning, afternoon, or good night. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.